Chapter 198. As the voice rang out, the third master Een saw a tall, middle-aged man appear beside him. Someone actually dared to smash the door of the third master Yin's private room. How audacious! The third master Een was about to get angry when he heard the girl beside Li Daochong call out, "Dad." He immediately swallowed his words. The father of Mr. Li's friend, the third master Een, didn't dare to say anything else. He could only stand aside and wait for Mr. Li to speak. Huang Jiaran's beautiful eyes were wide open. How could she have imagined that she would meet her father here? In the morning, her father had told her to focus on her classes and not to fool around with Jin Wencheng, Tian Meng, and the others. The father and daughter went their separate ways after breakfast, but they met again 2 to 3 hours later. However, the location was a little awkward. "Dad, I don't have classes today. I brought my friends to the underground city to buy things." Huang Jiaran quickly stood up and explained. To buy things in the underground fighting arena. Ran. If your mother knew that you came to a place like this and hung out with these shady people, she would definitely put you under house arrest, the gray-robed man said angrily. His eyes swept across the private room and saw the third master Yin's group. He was so angry that he clenched his teeth. His daughter was from a respectable family. How could she hang out with these people? The third master, Een, looked at the gray-robed man. The more he looked, the more familiar he felt. His heart skipped a beat. Wasn't this the head of the Huang family, Huang Yuelong? The Huang family was an official family on the Scarlet Sun planet. Their family wasn't very powerful, but at least half of the Huang family's direct descendants were local government officials. This made the Huang family a very special existence among the big families on the Scarlet Sun planet. Offending the Huang family was equivalent to offending the local government of the Federation. The scary thing about the Huang family was that they represented the government. They were the nemesis of people like the third master Een. Recognizing Huang Yuelong, the third master Een instinctively shrank back like a mouse seeing a cat. "Who is he?" Huang Yuelong frowned and looked at Li Daochong, who was sitting beside Huang Jiaran. "My friend, Dad. You don't have to care about my affairs." Huang Jiaran simply replied. She was very repulsed by her father's discipline. Now you're all grown up. Jiaran, you're inexperienced. Don't be fooled by their sweet words. I won't allow you to interact with these people. Come with me." Huang Yuelong snorted coldly and looked at Li Daochong with an unfriendly gaze. "Dad, how can you say that? It's my business who I interact with. You could go do your own thing," Huang Jiaran said unhappily. "You're my daughter. You'll always be under my control. If I say you're not allowed to interact with these people, then you're not allowed to. Come with me. If you don't, then I'm going to make a move." Huang Yuelong's voice became stern. "Dad, how can you do this? If you hit me, I won't recognize you as my dad," Huang Jiaran said seriously. Huang Yuelong didn't expect that his daughter, who had always been docile and well-behaved, would say such words. He immediately swept his cold gaze around and finally landed on Li Daochong. Just now, Huang Yuelong had been staring at them from the opposite side. He clearly saw that his daughter and this young man behaved very intimately. His daughter's behavior was poles apart from her usual behavior. Huang Yuelong knew his daughter too well. So many young masters surrounded her, but she didn't even look at them. Even the eldest son of the Ouyang family, Ouyang Ju, treated him coldly. If his daughter didn't have feelings for this young man in front of him, it was absolutely impossible for her to be so intimate with him. Huang Yuelong knew that he couldn't use force with his daughter. Huang Jiaran looked docile and well-behaved at home, but once she decided on something, even 8 horses couldn't pull her back. It would only make the relationship between father and daughter completely strained. Huang Yuelong had already felt strange when he was in the White Ape box. With the status of the third master Een, why would he condescend to be behind a young man? This young man might have some background. But no matter what his background was, Huang Yuelong didn't care. Hanging out with the third master Een, he couldn't be a good person. In addition, this young man's aura was pitifully weak. He had a lowly identity and no strength. It was impossible for him to be with his daughter. Huang Yuelong pushed Huang Jiaran aside and said to Li Daochong, "Young man, can I have a word with you?" Then, without waiting for Li Daochong's answer, he turned around and walked out of the box. He said to Huang Jiran, I can stop you from leaving, but don't follow me out. If you do, I'll take you away today, no matter what. Huang Jiran bit her lower lip. A layer of mist appeared in her beautiful eyes. She was very uncomfortable with her father's autocratic discipline, but she couldn't do anything about it. Li Daocheng had a good impression of Huang Jiran. He didn't want the father and daughter to have conflict. He glanced at the ring, then got up and followed them out. After leaving the box, Huang Yuelong walked to the corridor and stopped. He turned around and looked at Li Daocheng. He asked with an unfriendly face, Boy, what's your name? Li Daocheng didn't care about the hostility in Huang Yuelong's eyes. He replied indifferently, Li Daocheng. When Huang Yuelong heard the name, he pondered for a while. He couldn't find any information about this young man in his memory. Li Daocheng, right? I'm Huang Jiran's father. I just want to tell you that you and Jiran don't belong in the same world. She's not someone you can touch. Li Daocheng revealed a strange expression. Just as he was about to speak, Huang Yuelong spoke again. There are many people pursuing Jiran, including the eldest son of the Ouyang family, Ouyang Ju. In my opinion, even Ouyang Ju might not be qualified. Since you're with Third Master Yin, you must know the son of the mayor of Qiyang City, Chen Yifeng. He's ranked third in the superclass of Qiyang University and is already qualified for the joint entrance examination of 100 schools. Only he can be Jiran's support in the future. So what? Li Daocheng's expression was normal, but he was a little confused. He didn't know why Huang Jiran's father was telling him this. What did it have to do with him? Nothing. I just want you to know that there's a gap between people, and this gap is like a chasm that can't be crossed. You have to know your own weight, your own strength, and your own identity. Don't do anything delusional. You're not worthy of my daughter. As Huang Yuelong spoke, his aura suddenly increased and oppressed Li Daocheng. Huang Yuelong was actually a practitioner in the late stage of qi gathering. He had a very strong sense of spiritual energy, but this kind of pressure was useless against Li Daocheng. However, Li Daocheng didn't use his qi to resist. Huang Yuelong wanted to test Li Daocheng's strength, but he didn't respond. In his heart, he looked down on Li Daocheng even more. Uncle Huang. Out of courtesy, Li Daocheng still called him respectfully. However, just as he opened his mouth, he was interrupted again. Bang! Huang Yuelong punched out, brushing past Li Daocheng's face and bombarding the wall behind him. In an instant, a deep gully was left on the wall. The wall of the shadow, secluded house's boxing arena, was made of metal and reinforced. There was a defensive spiritual array on it, so it was much harder than ordinary walls. This was also to prevent the shock waves from damaging the wall when the two sides were fighting in the arena. Therefore, it was built with special care. Ordinary middle-grade human step practitioners couldn't even leave a mark on the wall. However, Huang Yuelong's punch almost penetrated the wall. Don't call me Uncle Huang. Huang Yuelong sternly stopped him and continued. I don't have a cheap nephew like you. Go back to the box and tell Jiran to leave this place quickly. Don't ever see her again. As long as she leaves, I'll give you 30 million Federation coins as a reward. What a big deal. Li Daocheng smiled slightly. You're tempted. I knew you weren't sincere to Jiran. If you want money, leave her quickly. Otherwise, I won't let you off easily. The next time you attack, it won't be a wall. In Huang Yuelong's eyes, Li Daocheng's smile was just a money grubber. He had already seen through this young man and despised him even more. After he finished speaking, he glared at Li Daocheng. Boom! At this moment, a shadow suddenly flew out of the arena and bombarded the wall. It fell in the corridor behind Li Daocheng and Huang Yuelong. It was Zhu Xiaotian, who had just fought with Lei Hu in the arena. Huang Yuelong was shocked. He didn't expect Zhu Xiaotian to be beaten so badly in such a short time. His face darkened as he looked at the wall that had been punched through. He said, Kid, you're on your own. I still have things to do. Hurry up and let Jiran go back. Otherwise, you'll get it. After he finished speaking, Huang Yuelong's figure flashed and disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in White Ape's box. Li Daocheng raised his eyebrows slightly and returned to the box. Big brotherly, my dad didn't say anything to you, right? Huang Juran asked nervously when she saw Li Daochong come in. Chapter 199. Li Daochong could understand Huang Yuelong's words. If he had a daughter, he wouldn't let her mix around with people like Third Masterine. It wasn't a big deal that he loved his daughter dearly. However, Li Daochong had only known Huang Juran for a few days. How could he have developed feelings for her in such a short time? Huang Yuelong was thinking too much. Moreover, Li Daochong was focused on cultivating. He didn't care about anything else. It wasn't that Li Daochong didn't care about the matters between men and women. It was just that none of the women he had met so far could move his heart. Oh no, there might be one. After Li Daochong sat down, a cold face involuntarily appeared in his mind. Li Daochong's face revealed a warm smile that disappeared quickly. He then turned his gaze towards the arena. Like a ferocious tiger crouching in the grass, he locked onto the prey that was about to enter his mouth. Lei Hu. After Zhu Xiaodian was sent flying by Lei Hu's punch, Ruan Jinfeng's charming face turned pale. This Lei Hu was too strong. Zhu Xiaodian, who was at the peak of the body refinement realm, couldn't even last 2 moves against him. How could this be? Ruan Jinfeng clenched her fists tightly. A bead of sweat flowed down her face. The northern power that she was determined to get was gone. It wasn't just Ruan Jinfeng who thought this. Everyone in the arena thought the same. Zhu Xiaotian was the #1 expert in the eastern region of the Scarlet Sun planet. The white-haired white ape looked at Lei Hu. He didn't have the slightest thought of stepping up. He was almost on par with Zhu Xiaotian. Wouldn't he be courting death if he stepped up? The entire boxing field was suffocated by Lei Hu's powerful aura. Those martial artists who had previously wanted to show off their skills and were quite confident in their own strength had all given up. None of them dared to look directly at Lei Hu. The entire arena was silent. Even a sound of breathing could not be heard. Everyone was intimidated by the abnormally strong Lei Hu. They were afraid that Lei Hu would see if they did something wrong. Haha, what's wrong? Is there no one else? Is this all there is to the Scarlet Sun planet's underground forces? Lei Hu glanced at the crowd and laughed. Lei Hu's vicious face suddenly turned to look at White Ape. Boss White, didn't you boast that you've broken through the peak of the body refinement realm and reached the master realm? Why don't you come down and spar with me? Being called out, White Ape's eyes narrowed. Of White Ape had never flinched. But now, he wanted to retreat. But at this moment, Huang Yuelong, who had left for a short while, suddenly appeared and said in a deep voice, White Ape, come on stage. White Ape was, after all, a big shot. Even if he was afraid, he would never show it. With Huang Yuelong around, he had nothing to be afraid of. It was obvious that Lei Hu was holding a grudge over what had happened in the past. White Ape knew that he couldn't avoid it. Even if he could avoid it today, he couldn't avoid it forever. Even if he admitted defeat and didn't go up on stage, Lei Hu would come looking for trouble with the White Ape Gang in the future. However, from now on, the White Ape Gang would be dependent on the government. With this big tree behind him, White Ape didn't believe that Lei Hu would be able to touch him. Glancing at Huang Yuelong, White Ape nodded. He slapped the armrest of his chair and leaped into the air. He landed on the arena like a white ape. Lei Hu, I would like to exchange a few moves with you. White Ape cupped his fists. Exchange a few moves? You're not worthy. Lei Hu snapped. Lei Hu moved. Lei Hu's phantom body technique appeared again. He flashed like a shadow and appeared in front of White Ape. White Ape was prepared. He had seen Lei Hu's moves 3 times. He knew his moves by heart. He did not care if he could see it clearly. He threw a punch. White Ape's giant ape Vajra fist was a low-level Earth-class fist technique. It was one of the best among body cultivators. A few months ago, Huang Yuelong gave him a mid-level Earth-class palm technique called Meteor Palm. It was a high-level technique. It was not difficult to practice and was very powerful. It had 3 layers and was easy to learn. The only drawback was that it consumed a lot of energy. With White Ape's strength, 2 palms were his limit. However, his 1 palm was like a meteor. He finished 108 palms in an instant. Lei Hu's face, which had always been filled with hostility, was slightly surprised. The White Ape's punch was extremely exquisite, and its power was also astonishing. Fan Hao, who was controlling the Thunder Tiger, was also surprised. The white ape was even stronger than Zhu Xiaotian. Lei Hu did not dare to be careless. He dodged sideways. White ape's arm was as thick as a rock. It was 10 centimeters longer than the average person. That was how he got his nickname. The advantage of having long arms was that his fist had a long attacking range. Most people were not used to fighting white ape. They could not control the distance and fell for it. Lei Hu, who was Yin puppet, was powerful. He almost did not control the distance. Fortunately, Lei Hu reacted quickly. He stretched out his hand and blocked White Ape's punch. White Ape was the first person to ask Lei Hu to back off. Lei Hu was the first person to step up and ask him to back off. There was a chance. White Ape had taken the initiative with his punch, but he didn't dare to be careless because Thunderous Tiger's reaction was faster than he expected. He thought that he could catch Thunderous Tiger off guard with his long arms, but he didn't expect to miss. Lei Hu's face showed a trace of anger. White Ape felt something was wrong. He did not hesitate and shouted, "Meteor Palm." A wave of chi gushed out from White Ape's body. Bang! It shook and spread rapidly. Those who were near the stage with low cultivation were directly thrown to the ground. What? White Ape can actually release his chi, someone exclaimed. In an instant, hundreds of palms shot out like meteors. Pa 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 pa. Deafening high-frequency sounds rang out. The tens of thousands of spectators in the boxing arena felt like their eardrums were about to burst. Most of them covered their ears with their hands and showed a painful expression. Lei Hu blocked all of White Ape's hundreds of palms. What? White Ape exclaimed in shock. Just as he opened his mouth, Lei Hu's fist greeted White Ape's lower abdomen. Wah! White Ape spat out a mouthful of acid. His eyes bulged. Lei Hu punched again. White Ape wanted to dodge, but he was powerless. He was hit in the chest again. His whole body retreated more than 10 steps and fell to the ground. Whoosh! Lei Hu chased after White Ape and raised his foot to stomp on White Ape's face. Stop! Are you here to fight or to kill? A shout was heard. A gray shadow flashed from the box above. At the same time, a silver light fell from the sky and slashed at Lei Hu's back. It was as fast as lightning. Just when everyone thought that Lei Hu would be seriously injured, a strange scene appeared. Lei Hu twisted his body and a broad knife appeared in his hand. It was Lei Hu's usual weapon, a broad-backed machete. Clang! The two weapons collided and sparks flew. Seeing that White Ape was about to be beaten to death in the ring, Huang Yuelong could not sit idly by. This was a puppet he had spent a lot of effort to find. Huang Yuelong used 80% of his strength to attack Lei Hu from behind. He thought that he could injure Lei Hu. Who would have thought that not only did he not succeed, but his wrist was also numb. Lei Hu's strength was actually higher than Huang Yuelong's. Even though he was in a higher position, he did not gain any advantage. He was directly sent flying more than 10 meters and fell to the ground. Chapter 200. Lei Hu's face darkened as he glared at the man in the gray robe. Another sneak attack? Ouyang Zhu attacked me just now, and I let it slide. Are you guys addicted to it? Huang Yuelong felt a sharp pain in his wrist. He quickly put his hand back into his robe and looked at Lei Hu with less disdain. Huang Yuelong was a late-stage Qi gathering cultivator and was not far from the peak stage. If not for the fact that he was busy with his family's affairs and the underground forces of the Scarlet Sun planet, he would have already reached the peak stage of Qi gathering cultivator, and Foundation establishment stage would not be too far away. Although Huang Yuelong was not very talented, he still had a high chance of reaching the Foundation establishment stage. As a self-cultivator, Huang Yuelong had always looked down on body refinement cultivators. These boorish people were fierce in the early stages, but weak in the later stages. Once a self-cultivator reached the Foundation establishment stage, no matter how strong a body refinement cultivator was, they were no match for him. Among the 3 types of cultivation, body refinement cultivators were the weakest. Qi refinement cultivators were neither strong nor weak. Only when a cultivator reached the cultivation stage would they be able to reach the peak. Therefore, Huang Yuelong had always looked down on body refinement cultivators. However, at this moment, Huang Yuelong looked at Lei Hu with fear in his eyes. How did this guy cultivate? Had he really reached the transcendent state of body refinement cultivator? It was said that a body refining grandmaster could kill all cultivators in the late stage of the Qi condensation realm. And without the peak of the Qi condensation realm, there was no way to fight against them. Huang Yuelong suddenly regretted going up the stage. Unfortunately, it was too late. Lei Hu, don't go overboard. The purpose of today's martial arts competition is to prevent a huge commotion. You're so ruthless, trying to kill people with every move. Are you trying to make the entire underground city your enemy? Huang Yuelong said in a low voice. Humph, a martial arts competition is a martial arts competition. Why should I be afraid of being beaten to death? If you're afraid of death, then don't go up the stage. Where did you come from? If you want to fight, then let's fight. You broke the rules one after another, and I didn't say anything. Are you going to fight or not? Lei Hu snorted. Lei Hu, don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you have some skills. Huang Yuelong said as he winked at the medical staff below the stage. Following which, two men wearing white alchemist robes timidly stepped onto the stage and carried White Ape away. At first, Fan Hao wanted to control Lei Hu to stop him, but on second thought, his main goal was to seize the ownership of the northern region. Since White Ape was already seriously injured, if he stopped now, he was afraid that it would cause public outrage. So, he dismissed the idea of killing White Ape and turned his attention to the gray-robed man who had suddenly appeared. Lei Hu scanned the crowd and sneered. I also want to have someone in my eyes, but do I? Was there? Ha ha ha. When Lei Hu reached the end of his sentence, he threw his head back and laughed loudly. His voice contained an offensive sound wave, causing more than half of the audience to feel dizzy. Some even vomited on the spot, while some even lost consciousness temporarily. For a moment, the people below the black market boxing ring were all shaken. The underground forces of Scarlet Sun City were actually invincible under the might of a single person. Not to mention the small forces and individuals below the stage. Even the real big shots in the box couldn't do anything to Lei Hu. His strength had already exceeded their expectations, and he was no longer someone they could fight against. Ruan Jinfeng's pair of charming peach blossom eyes flickered. As the only big sister of Scarlet Sun Planet's underground forces, she had never been oppressed by anyone before. But now, she couldn't do anything. Her plump breasts were heaving up and down violently. Ouyang Ju's face had been gloomy ever since Iron Eagle was crippled, but his eyes were filled with fear when he looked at Lei Hu. It wasn't fear, nor was it cowardice, but it was fear. Ouyang Ju had already suffered internal injuries from the palm strike he had received from Lei Hu. With this kind of strength, he could be considered one of the top in Scarlet Sun University. Even the top 3 in the superclass wouldn't be a match for Lei Hu. The third master, Yin, stood behind Li Daochong with a gloomy face. He didn't expect such a person to appear and completely mess up his plans. A Jiao had broken through the peak of the refinement realm a month ago, and her strength had increased tremendously. In order to let A Jiao increase her strength, the third master, Yin, didn't care about the cost and spent a large amount of money to buy cultivation resources. He only sold the best spiritual medicine and spiritual liquid. He even built an A-grade cultivation room for A Jiao to cultivate. He hoped that she would be able to shine in this battle and take over the ownership of the North in one fell swoop. This would allow the third master Yin's sphere of influence to increase further. But Lei Hu defeated 4 masters consecutively with only one move. With this kind of strength, the third master Yin didn't even need A Jiao to go on stage to know the result. Before meeting Lei Hu, the third master Yin had thought that Mr. Li was already a top-notch expert in the body refinement realm. At least in the underground forces of the Scarlet Sun Planet, there shouldn't be anyone stronger than Mr. Li. But now, the third master Yin was sure that Lei Hu's strength was above Mr. Li's. Thinking of this, the third master Yin inadvertently glanced at Li Daochong, who was sitting in front of him. Originally, the third master Yin had planned to beg Mr. Li to help him if he couldn't do it. At most, he would give Mr. Li a generous gift. As long as he could take over the ownership of the North, a generous gift was nothing. But now, the third Master Een had completely dispelled this idea. Mr. Li was young Master An's benefactor. If the third Master Een was humiliated and injured because of him, Lehu might even kill him. Then, the third Master Een wouldn't be able to live to see the next day. Young Master An definitely had hundreds of ways to make him disappear from this world. Lehu's laughter was filled with mockery and contempt. It pierced the hearts of everyone in the underground city. Was there really no one in the underground city of Scarlet Sun Planet? They couldn't even beat a former thief. Lehu stopped laughing and lowered his head to look at Huang Yuelong. Since you're on the stage, let's exchange a few blows. If you can block 5 of my punches, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. If you can't, it doesn't matter if you die. How about it? The moment he said this, the crowd below the stage fell silent. No one thought that Lei, who was being arrogant. What was more terrifying was that most people actually thought that Lei, who had the right to say this. Today, the underground city of Scarlet Sun Planet was destined to be trampled under the feet of a foreign thief. You don't dare? Ha ha ha. I can give you a chance to switch people. As long as anyone here can block 5 of my punches, as long as they're still standing, it'll be my loss. If not, this battle will end here. You could declare me the winner and hand over the ownership of the North to me. Lehu stood with his hands behind his back and laughed. When had Huang Yuelong ever been looked down upon like this? He was so angry that his blood boiled in his chest. Lehu, come. I'll take 5 of your punches. No. Just as Huang Yuelong said this, a sharp female voice came from the private room above. Huang Jiran didn't care about the tens of thousands of doubtful eyes below. She leaned on the railing of the private room and was about to cry. No matter how strict Huang Yuelong was, he was still her father. How could Huang Jiran watch her father die for nothing? The person on the stage called Lei, who was too powerful. Huang Jiran knew that her father wasn't a cultivator who specialized in martial arts. Lei, who glanced at Huang Jiran, then looked at Huang Yuelong and said jokingly, "This lady is right. I think it's best if you don't do it. This Lei's 5 punches will be stronger than any of the previous ones. Cut the crap. Come." Huang Yuelong didn't even look at his anxious daughter. "All right, you asked for it. I'll give you a chance to back out." After Lehu finished speaking, he used his ghostly movement skill again. Just as he was about to start, wait. A clear voice came through. It wasn't loud, but it made Lehu's heart tremble. His body trembled for no reason, and he didn't take a step forward. Chapter 201. Lehu raised his head and looked at the young man who had spoken. His face was full of anger. "Young man, do you have any objections?" Lehu was not in a hurry to deal with the middle-aged man. There was no worthy opponent in the entire arena. "Why don't I take 5 of your punches?" Li Daochong said indifferently. "What?" At the same time, several people subconsciously shouted in surprise from different directions around the boxing field. Did I hear wrongly? Where did this brat come from? Who does he think he is? Can't he see that even masters like Zhu, Xiaotian, and White Ape couldn't take a single punch from Lehu? Does he want to die? I don't think he wants to die. He wants to be famous so much that he's gone crazy. F***CK. What's the point of being famous for fighting with your life? Even if you're famous, what's the point of losing your life? There are always people in this world who think differently. Calm down, calm down. Anyway, you're not the one on stage. Don't look like you're a F***king dog. Li Daochong originally did not want to go on stage. Whether it was the martial arts competition or the ownership of the Northern Forces, they were worthless in his eyes. He wanted to find a dark and windy place to kill Lei Hu after the martial arts competition. He wanted to swallow Lei Hu's death aura without anyone knowing. However, when Huang Yuelong went on stage, Huang Jiran, who was sitting next to him, became restless. Tears kept rolling down her cheeks. Li Daochong naturally knew about Huang Jiran's abnormality. She was worried that her father would be killed by Lei Hu. Lei Hu had been extremely fierce against any opponent since the beginning of the competition. Every time he attacked, it was as if he wanted to take the opponent's life. Huang Jiran said to Li Daochong, "Big brother Li, will my father be killed?" Li Daochong did not answer. He did not know how to answer. He could not say yes. Huang Jiran then stood up and shouted no. Huang Jiran treated Li Daochong as a friend. Naturally, Li Daochong treated her as a friend. If someone was good to him, he would be good to them. This was Li Daochong's personality in his previous life. You? Ha ha ha. Lei Hu laughed loudly when he heard Li Daochong's words. Kid, you're not worthy. Lei Hu's words were arrogant, but no one in the boxing arena thought that there was anything wrong with what he said. When Li Daochong opened his mouth, several psychic senses shot out. Their intentions were clear and terrifying. They wanted to probe the cultivation base of this brat who dared to say such words. However, in just a few seconds, these psychic senses were quickly retracted. They had lost interest in Li Daochong. The aura of this arrogant brat was pitifully weak. He was only in the qi refining stage. Countless pairs of contemptuous eyes looked at Li Daochong, as if to say, I've seen people who overestimate themselves, but I've never seen someone who overestimates himself like this. At this time, Ruan Jinfeng also looked at Li Daochong. Her charming eyes revealed a strange expression. She could not help but frown. She disdainfully said, Where did this hothead come from? Is he allowed to speak in this kind of situation? A woman standing behind Ruan Jinfeng was surprised. This woman was Li Daochong's first love, Li Xiumei. Why was he here? Li Xiumei never dreamed that Li Daochong would be in this underground boxing arena. Cough, cough. The old man dressed as Yi Renfei suddenly coughed twice. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He glanced at Li Xiumei's nervous little face, and jealousy rose in his heart. He said to Ruan Jinfeng, clan leader Ruan, there are people who are crazy about fame everywhere. If he wants to die, let him die. Yi Renfei said this to Ruan Jinfeng, but in fact, he said it to Li Xiumei. In another box, Yi Hong's whole body was almost glued to Li Daochong's body. When she heard Li Daochong's words, she immediately sneered. Young Master Jew, I really don't know how Jiran got to know this country bumpkin. It's fine if he's a country bumpkin, but there's also something wrong with his brain. Ouyang Ju sneered. Isn't it good that there's something wrong with his brain? It saved me a lot of trouble. Lei Hu is abominable, but if he goes up on stage, I'll support him. Ha. Young Master Ju, you're so bad. Yi Hong patted Ouyang Ju's chest lightly and acted coquettishly. When Third Master Yin heard Li Daochong say that he was going to receive Lei Hu's 5 punches, he almost did not think and hurriedly whispered from behind, Mr. Li, don't be rash. Even Liao Hui, who was recuperating at the side, hurriedly opened his eyes and stopped him. Mr. Li, you can't. Lei Hu is very strange. I'm afraid you're not his opponent. Today was A Jiao's first time meeting Li Daochong, but she had heard Third Master Yin mention that he was young master and savior and knew ancient medical skills. She had always been curious. Just now, when Mr. Li saved Liao Hui's life, she had a good impression of him. But now, for some reason, Mr. Li suddenly stood up and said such a sentence. A Jiao suddenly felt that Mr. Li was too reckless. This matter clearly had nothing to do with him, and he could have just let it go. Why did he have to bring trouble to himself? The glorious image that she had just built in her heart was pulled down a little. Li Daochong acted as if he did not hear Third Master Yin and Liao Hui's dissuasion. He looked at Lei Hu in the ring with an indifferent expression. Big brother Li, are you trying to replace my father? Huang Jiran looked at Li Daochong in shock with tears streaming down her face. Li Daochong turned his face and smiled, but did not reply. Big brother Li don't. Huang Jiran did not know what to do. Huang Yuelong looked at Huang Jiran and Li Daochong, who were standing at the edge of the guardrail. Nonsense. Sit down. This is none of your business. As soon as Huang Yuelong finished speaking, Li Daochong had already turned around. Huang Jiran wanted to reach out and grab Li Daochong, but when she reached out, she grabbed nothing. The figure that was clearly in front of her was like an illusion. She only saw the back of that figure disappear outside the box. Li Daochong's figure quickly appeared from the aisle and walked towards the ring step by step. He ignored everyone's gaze and walked towards the ring calmly. Compared to the previous big shots, this way of entering the ring was a little too unique. This brat coming down from the box and walking into the ring. He doesn't even know the basic light body technique. Who gave him the courage to take 5 punches from Lei Hu? When Li Daochong walked up the steps of the ring, a mocking voice came from behind him. Huang Yuelong looked at Li Daochong walking in front of him and said in a low voice, "Brat, this is none of your business. Hurry up and leave. Do you want to die? Take Ran and leave immediately. I'll add another 10 million to the money I promised you just now." Li Daochong said indifferently, "I don't want your daughter to worry. Let me take these 5 punches for you." Huang Yuelong was slightly stunned. He did not expect that this brat who hung out with Third Master Yin would care so much about his daughter. He was willing to risk his life to take Lei Hu's 5 punches for him. He had misjudged him. Huang Yuelong was really touched. To be able to treat his daughter like this, no matter what his status was, he did not need to be calculative. Although his intentions were good, this was not a game. He would lose his life. Since his daughter liked it, he would let her be. Huang Yuelong sighed in his heart. "Brat, I misjudged you. You're not bad. I will not stop you from dating my daughter. Listen to me and get off the ring. Take my daughter away. I don't want her to see me fighting with others." Huang Yuelong wanted to push Li Daochong off the ring, but there was no sign of him. Li Daochong had already walked in front of Lei Hu. Lei Hu's figure was tall. He looked down at Li Daochong and said disdainfully, "Brat, since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Since you have the guts, I will give you a chance to tell me your name so that you could die with a name." "Call me Mr. Li," Li Daochong said indifferently. "Mr. Li." When Lei Hu heard the answer, he felt like he was being teased. "I have waited for so long, and you are telling me to call you Mr. Li?" Lei Hu's aura surged out. He roared, "Brat, you are bluffing." Lei Hu did not leave any room for negotiation. He raised his giant fist and smashed it towards Li Daochong's face. Huang Yuelong was shocked. His body flashed, and he wanted to save Li Daochong, but it was too late. Below the ring, there were screams. Huang Jiran was so scared that she covered her face and sobbed. "Pa!" A crisp sound rang through the ring. Li Daochong casually stretched out his hand and caught Lei Hu's thunderous punch. It was as if he had caught an apple that had fallen from a tree. Chapter 202. The entire arena was silent. In the arena, Li Daochong's action of casually catching Lei Hu's swift and violent punch seemed to have stopped. This scene shocked the tens of thousands of spectators below the stage. Were their eyes playing tricks on them? Lei Hu's punch looked soft and weak, but this kid blocked it with a light lift of his hand. What the hell was going on? Everyone was puzzled. Below the stage, Fan Hao almost couldn't control his emotions and stood up. He was very clear about Lei Hu's strength. He had used almost all of his strength in that punch, wanting to smash this kid into pieces. However, Fan Hao had never thought that this brat would be able to block it. Moreover, he did it in such a relaxed and leisurely manner. It was like a couple flirting with each other. The woman threw a delicate punch, and the man caught it. Lei Hu was the girl who threw the punch? Fan Hao was dumbfounded. After a few seconds, he came back to his senses. A cold light flashed in his eyes. "Good kid, so you came prepared. I underestimated you." Lei Hu used that move. Fan Hao didn't hesitate. He immediately gave Lei Hu a death order. However, after Fan Hao gave the order, Lei Hu didn't move. When Li Daochong caught Lei Hu's punch, the spirit chi in his body surged and entered Lei Hu's body. Li Daochong had always been curious about the faint death aura. Now he finally had the chance to come into contact with it. However, when the spirit chi entered Lei Hu's body, he couldn't find the source of the death aura. It was as if the death aura didn't exist. However, the spirit chi in Lei Hu's body was like a pool of stagnant water, full of hostility. Lei Hu's body was very strange. There wasn't a trace of vitality. Just as Li Daochong was puzzled, a psychic power shot over, and Li Daochong locked onto Fan Hao. Li Daochong immediately understood that Lei Hu was just a puppet. The square-faced man below the stage was the real master. Fan Hao was shocked. He pushed his psychic power to the peak and gave Lei Hu another order. This time, Lei Hu moved. He clenched his other hand into a fist and punched Li Daochong without warning. The corner of Li Daocheng's eyes flashed as he grabbed Lei Hu's fist. He clenched his fist and kicked out like a whip. Crack, boom. Lei Hu's fist was squeezed into a deformed shape. His head suffered a heavy blow. He didn't even complete 1/3 of the way before he fell down like a cannonball and smashed heavily on the stage. The whole stage caved in, and half of Lei Hu's body was embedded in it. Ruan Jinfeng's eyes were wide open. And unbelievable. Lei Hu, who was insufferably arrogant and unstoppable just now, in front of this young man. Was Lei Hu too weak, or was this young man too powerful? Ruan Jinfeng was a little. There was no doubt about Lei Hu's strength. It was an indisputable fact that he had consecutively defeated 4 famous experts from the underground forces. However, the reason why Ruan Jinfeng felt that Lei Hu was weak at this moment was that this young man did not use any strength at all when he attacked. It was so casual that it made people wonder if he was fighting or leisurely drinking afternoon tea. Ouyang Ju's group stood in the box with their mouths wide open. Yihang's delicate body that was stuck to Ouyang Ju's body unconsciously moved away. Her pair of peach blossom eyes stared blankly at Li Daocheng, who had instantly killed Lei Hu. Yihang's fickle personality made her want to rush to the stage and kiss Li Daocheng at this moment. Master Ju, am I hallucinating? Ouyang Ju clenched his fists. Under the shock, he was angry that he had been deceived. Has this guy been showing off just now? His strength is so strong. Ouyang Ju was very clear about Lei Hu's strength after he fought with Lei Hu. He was no match for Lei Hu, but Lei Hu was like a human sandbag in front of this bumpkin. He could do nothing but be beaten. Huang Yuelong stood on one side of the stage in a daze. The vibration under his feet made his heart beat violently. What kind of power is this? So horrible? Huang Yuelong looked at Li Daocheng with fear in his eyes. Thinking back to a few minutes ago, he actually wanted to threaten this young man to leave his daughter, and even wanted to use force. He looked like he was only 18 or 19 years old, but he had such strength. Huang Yuelong suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. Such a young and powerful person. There were only a few in the whole Red Sun Star. Was there? Huang Yuelong hesitated. Maybe there was no such thing. Even the son-in-law in his heart, Chun Yifeng, was far from reaching this level. Huang Yuelong was very clear about the strength of the underground forces. Zhu Xiaotian was a powerful master in the body refining realm. It was difficult for a cultivator in the middle stage of the Qi gathering realm to defeat him. White Ape's strength was comparable to Zhu Xiaotian, but after he practiced the meteor palm that Huang Yuelong gave him, his strength had surpassed Zhu Xiaotian. Huang Yuelong himself may not be considered a big deal in the whole Red Sun Star, but in the underground city, he was definitely one of the top. Huang Yuelong was in the late stage of the Qi gathering realm. His cultivation was solid. In the past 30 years, he had never done anything to quickly improve his cultivation. Step by step, he had reached where he was now. But when Huang Yuelong faced Lei Hu, just the powerful aura released by the other party made him feel extremely uncomfortable. After Huang Yuelong and Lei Hu exchanged a blow, he knew that he was no match for Lei Hu. Bang! Just as Huang Yuelong's heart was in turmoil, a muffled sound was heard. Li Daocheng kicked Lei Hu's waist, who was half buried in the ring. Lei Hu grunted. His body that was buried in the ring moved back a few meters, leaving a human-shaped gully in the ring. The underground black market's ring was made of a kind of stone metal, which was extremely hard. Even a cultivator in the Qi gathering realm would find it difficult to leave a mark on it with their bare hands, unless they used a magical weapon. But the young man in the ring was able to break such a hard ring into pieces with just a raise of his hand. Lei Hu was no longer as fierce as before. He was like a chick that was being played with, waiting to be slaughtered. With one palm and 2 kicks, Li Daocheng turned Lei Hu into a dead dog. Except for his face that was filled with hostility, his body was deformed. Li Daocheng did not want to kill Lei Hu. He just wanted to make him lose his ability to move, so that he could safely search for the Death Qi. Bang! Li Daocheng grabbed Lei Hu's wrist and lifted him up from the ground. Bang! He punched his lower abdomen again. Bang, bang, bang. Li Daocheng's fist that did not use any strength kept falling on Lei Hu's abdomen. The muffled sounds echoed rhythmically in the ring. To the outside world, Li Daocheng clearly wanted to kill Lei Hu. But in fact, every punch that landed on Lei Hu's body did not have any lethality, but majestic spiritual qi would burst into Lei Hu's body. Li Daocheng saw that he could not find the source of the death qi using a gentle method, so he changed to a more violent method. Every muffled sound was actually the sound of spiritual qi wildly invading Lei Hu's body. After more than 10 punches, Li Daocheng's eyes moved. He found it. It was actually hidden in one of Lei Hu's unawakened spiritual veins, completely fusing with the spiritual veins. If not for the hot-blooded upgrader, Li Daocheng would not have been able to detect it. Immediately, Li Daocheng locked onto the spiritual vein and gathered all the spiritual qi there. In an instant, it encountered fierce resistance. The death qi wanted to break free from Li Daocheng's spiritual qi. However, in just 2 or 3 seconds, Li Daocheng's spiritual qi broke through the death qi's defense like a flood and swallowed it. D. Killed a red shadow malicious ghost. Obtained soul power. Host has leveled up to level 14. After the death qi was surrounded by spiritual qi, it was instantly swallowed and transformed by the hot-blooded upgrader. Li Daocheng's sea of consciousness beeped, and his spiritual root suddenly grew. The spiritual qi in his body suddenly increased, and he leveled up to level 14. Late stage of qi gathering. Li Daocheng did not expect that the death qi on Lei Hu's body was actually released by a red shadow malicious ghost. If he encountered a red shadow malicious ghost head-on, Li Daocheng would not be a match for it at all with his current strength. Facing a malicious ghost-level dark ghost without a foundation establishment stage cultivation was equivalent to seeing the king of hell. Li Daocheng did not know how Lei Hu had absorbed a red shadow malicious ghost, nor did he know why this red shadow malicious ghost was absorbed by Lei Hu, who had a low cultivation level. These were obviously not important to Li Daocheng. What was important was that this red shadow malicious ghost had now become his spiritual meal. Now, Li Daocheng's body already had all the conditions to level up. As long as there was enough spiritual qi, success would follow naturally. He did not feel any discomfort. After swallowing the death qi, Li Daocheng loosened his grip. Patter! Lei Hu lay motionless on the arena like a piece of dead meat. Chapter 203. There were tens of thousands of people in the black market boxing arena, and there were almost no empty seats. However, at this moment, it was dead silent. It was like a graveyard. Everyone's eyes were focused on Li Daocheng. Huang Yuelong, who was closest to him, was shocked and excited. Such a genius was actually pursuing his daughter. The heavens were really helping the Huang family. Lei Hu's statement that he would lose if anyone could take 5 of his punches became the biggest joke of the day at this moment. The young man's previously inconspicuous figure had now become unusually tall. Li Daocheng did not deliberately release his spiritual energy, so it was no different from before. His aura was even weaker than before, but the scene of him instantly killing Lei Hu was like an invisible hand that grabbed everyone's hearts. The awe that arose spontaneously was stronger than any kind of pressure. Most of the audience did not even dare to breathe loudly. The big shots in the box were also dumbfounded. When did such a powerful young man appear on planet Crimson Sun? Why had they never heard of him? Ruan Jinfeng's charming eyes flashed with a complicated brilliance. Why was this young man not her man? Or rather, he was not her lover. If it was today, wouldn't the ownership of the North belong to her? No matter how powerful Ruan Jinfeng was, she was still a woman. Compared to ordinary women, she was just a little more ambitious, had a strong aura, and was ruthless. In the eyes of ordinary people, this kind of big sister of the underworld was difficult to control because ordinary people did not have the strength to do so. When a powerful person appeared, Ruan Jinfeng would also be tempted and have a good impression of him. Obviously, Li Daocheng had left a deep impression on Ruan Jinfeng today. There was fear, affection, and some regret. In short, It was very complicated. Li Xiumei, who was standing behind Ruan Jinfeng, was completely stunned. Her whole body seemed to be fixed in place. On the ghost hunting planet, Li Daocheng had already shown changes that shocked Li Xiumei. Now that a few months had passed, Li Daocheng's strength had advanced by leaps and bounds to this extent. Li Xiumei had never expected this. Humph! Yi Renfei snorted coldly. How could the change in Li Xiumei's expression escape his eyes? He sent a telekinetic voice transmission. What's wrong? Are you tempted by that kid again? Li Xiumei's delicate body trembled. Only then did she turn her face to look at Yi Renfei, who was disguised as an old man. She replied, Renfei, don't overthink it. He told me not to think too much. Your current appearance explains everything. Isn't he also unable to forget you? Why don't I help you two reconcile? Yi Renfei said coldly. Renfei, don't be like this. Aren't we already engaged? Li Xiumei's eyes were filled with tears. Engagement? Li Xiumei, do you really think I want to be engaged to you? If it weren't for your Li family begging me and giving me a big gift, would you be qualified to be engaged to me? Yi Renfei's voice became extremely cold. Li Xiumei looked at Yi Renfei's fierce eyes and subconsciously took a step back. If she wasn't afraid of being discovered by Ruan Jinfeng, Li Xiumei just wanted to turn around and run. Letting her date Yi Renfei was the first elder's idea. Li Xiumei was just a side branch of the Li family. Compared to the family generals, she was just a little bit better. Li Xiumei's fate was never in her own hands. She had been instilled with a lot of thoughts that shouldn't have been instilled in her since she was young. Back then, the relationship she had with Li Daocheng was actually the result of her seduction. She wanted to use Li Daocheng as a springboard to become a phoenix. Although Li Daocheng's brain wasn't very bright, he didn't lack limbs. His looks were also above average. Li Xiumei had selfish motives, but at that time, she had already decided to follow Li Daocheng. After all, Li Daocheng was really good to her and was willing to give her anything. However, Li Tianyang's fate was never in her hands. First of all, the daughter-in-law in Li Tianyang's eyes was Qiao Shima, not her. Second of all, the family members saw that she was close to a fool and began to ostracize her. Later, when Yi Renfei appeared, Li Xiumei was moved. In the end, she gave up on Li Daocheng and chose to be with Yi Renfei, hoping that he would take her far away. Unfortunately, Yi Renfei never took her seriously. After Li Daocheng won first place on the Ghost Hunting Star, Yi Renfei's narrow-mindedness was completely exposed. He suspiciously believed that Li Xiumei had rekindled her old feelings for Li Daocheng. Then, he began to speak sarcastically to Li Xiumei and even fought with her. If the Li family hadn't tried their best to marry Li Xiumei into the Yi family and given generous gifts, Yi Renfei's father and Li Tianxing were comrades in arms. Relying on this friendship, Li Xiumei and Yi Renfei were engaged. Every time Li Xiumei was beaten by Yi Renfei, she would think of the days when she was with Li Daocheng. Only then did she understand what it meant to be in a hurry. At that time, she didn't know how precious those pure feelings were. Unfortunately, everything couldn't be reversed. At this time, Ouyang Zhu and his gang all shrank their heads for fear of being seen by Li Daocheng. How could a group of playboys expect that the country bumpkin who followed them would be so powerful? With such strength, except for Ouyang Zhu, other families didn't dare to provoke him easily. Li Daocheng walked down the arena as if no one was around. When he passed by Fan Hao, a powerful psyche power shrouded him. Fan Hao also had the death chi on him. In an instant, the psyche power wiped out the death chi on Fan Hao's body, but he himself didn't feel it. Li Daocheng had just walked down the arena when the hot woman from the shadow, secluded workshop jumped on the arena, holding the spirit wheat, and said, Mr. Li, please wait. Li Daocheng only had one purpose in entering the underground black market boxing field, and that was to swallow this strange death chi. From the beginning of perceiving this death chi, Li Daocheng faintly felt that this death chi was not ordinary. Although his perception was not very clear, this death chi was extremely condensed and was different from the death chi of the dark ghost he had encountered before. This was also the reason why Li Daocheng must swallow this death chi. However, Li Daocheng at first thought that it might only be a death spirit of the dark ghost level, and didn't expect it to be a red shadow ghost. This was many levels higher than a death spirit, and this red shadow ghost only had half of its death spirit power left. Even so, this was enough for Li Daocheng to jump one level and reach level 14, which was the late stage of the Qi gathering. This unexpected gift saved Li Daocheng a lot of trouble and time. In the following time, he could spend his thoughts on making spirit talismans and continuing to strengthen his body. Li Daocheng's thoughts were all on cultivation. So after defeating Lei Hu, he left the arena and had long forgotten the true purpose of today's martial arts conference. At this time, when he heard someone call out to him, Li Daocheng felt a little strange. He turned his face and said, "What's the matter?" The hot woman froze for a moment, and her beautiful eyes shot out a look that said, "Are you kidding me? Mr. Li, you defeated Lei Hu and suppressed all the heroes. The ownership of the northern region is yours. Don't you have anything to say?" The hot woman's eyes seemed to emit a kind of charm, as if she wanted to seduce Li Daocheng. Although the hot woman didn't understand Li Daocheng's reaction, he had such great strength at such a young age. If she could make friends with him, the benefits in the future would be self-evident. It had to be known that a young, handsome, and powerful expert was rarely seen anywhere. The hot woman didn't mind playing with this powerful young man for a few days. However, Li Daocheng acted as if he didn't see the hot woman's gaze. He said indifferently, "I was invited by Third Master Yin. Give the ownership of the northern region to him." After saying this, Li Daocheng didn't look at the hot woman anymore. He turned around and went upstairs. When Li Daocheng said that he would give the ownership of the northern region to him, Third Master Yin's heart bloomed with joy. He felt that a meat pie had really fallen from the sky. "Third Master, what's Mr. Li's cultivation level?" A Jiao asked as she stared at Li Daocheng while he was ravaging Lei Hu. I'm not very sure either," Third Master Yin replied, blushing with shame. "Could he be a foundation establishment cultivator?" A Jiao guessed in disbelief. "He must be," Liao Hui interrupted. The Third Master Yin's group no longer had their usual domineering attitude. After the Pure Gold Hotel incident, most of the respect they had for Li Daocheng was because of young Master Yin. Now, it was because this young man was too strong. He was so strong that it was beyond their scope of understanding. When Li Daocheng returned to the private room, Third Master Yin's group had already lined up in 2 rows to respectfully welcome his return. Master Li, Third Master Yin took the lead and bowed 90 degrees. He called out respectfully from the bottom of his heart. Chapter 204. Li Daocheng froze when he heard them call him Master Li. He wasn't used to this title and even felt a little disgusted. "Do I look that old? Just call me Mr. Li." Li Daocheng's eyebrows moved slightly. "Mr. Li, please tell me how you want to manage the northern region. I'll arrange everything according to your instructions." Third Master Yin quickly corrected himself. "You can decide how you want to manage it. I only want half of it," Li Daocheng said casually. 50-50? Third Master Yin couldn't believe that Mr. Li only wanted half of it. The Yin family, and he had always split it 30-70. The Yin family would take 70%, and he would take 30%. Even so, Third Master Yin was already very grateful to the Yin family. Hence, when he heard Li Daocheng say that he only wanted half of it, he almost cried. Third Master Yin was on the verge of tears. Where else could he find such a good boss? In his heart, Third Master Yin already treated Li Daocheng as his boss. With such power, he could do whatever he wanted on planet Qiyang. Although Third Master Yin was a puppet of the Yin family, the Yin family didn't care about him at all. They only supported him secretly. To put it bluntly, Third Master Yin was a fox, and the Yin family was a tiger, standing behind him. However, this tiger basically didn't move. Most of the time, it was only there to scare people. Only when Third Master Yin encountered something that he couldn't solve and needed help from the Yin family would they help. Mr. Li was different. They had only known each other for a few days, and he had personally helped Third Master Yin. Third Master Yin didn't know what was going on. The northern region was already in his hands. Where else could he find such a powerful leader who didn't oppress his subordinates? Mr. Li, why don't we split it 40 to 60? I'll take 40% and you take 60%. How about that? This world was won by Li Daocheng, after all. Third Master Yin was a little embarrassed to split it 50 to 50. He also didn't dare to. Hence, he suggested this. No need. In the future, there will be many things that I will need you to do for me. I'll let you take 50%, and a portion of it will be your reward. That's it. There's no need to say anything more. Li Daocheng gave Third Master Yin half of the profits to buy people's hearts. Who would be willing to work for you if you didn't give them benefits? Mr. Li, did you come to the black market boxing arena today? Third Master Yin asked cautiously. The Third Master Yin was smart. He had been with the Yin family for a long time, so he knew how to curry favor with the higher-ups. A person like Mr. Li would not have come to the underground city just to stroll around. Li Daocheng pondered for a moment before saying, I'm here to buy some materials. Do you have any way to help me get them? Third Master Yin's eyes lit up. He was just worried that he wouldn't be able to get into Mr. Li's good books. Now that the other party had a need, it couldn't be better. He could show off his usefulness and let Mr. Li feel that he was useful. Mr. Li, what materials do you want to buy? Third Master Yin wanted to make a promise, but when he thought of Mr. Li's strength, he felt that the things he wanted wouldn't be simple. If he couldn't deliver after boasting, then he would be in trouble. Li Daocheng glanced around and sent a telekinetic message to Third Master Yin, telling him the materials he needed. Li Daocheng wasn't at ease with the various people under Third Master Yin, so he didn't want to tell him the materials he needed. Li Daocheng had come to planet Red Sun to wait for the joint examination of 100 schools to begin. Before that, he didn't want to expose his identity. He had already taken some risks by going on stage to fight with Lei Hu. However, the black market boxing arena itself wasn't allowed by the Federation government. This kind of thing could easily cause social instability. For tens of thousands of years in the course of human development, there were always things that should exist. No matter how much they were restricted, it was useless for the Federation government. As long as it didn't openly challenge the government's authority, it basically turned a blind eye to gray areas. Other than having zero tolerance for harming cultivators and immortal herbs, the Federation government generally didn't care about other things that happened in the underground city. But even so, when entering the black market boxing arena, no filming equipment was allowed. There was also no spiritual internet. In this regard, the Shadow Serene Square was very strict. This was also the reason why Li Daocheng had finally decided to make a move. Plus, when he went on stage, his telekinetic power enveloped the entire boxing arena. Many people would find that after Li Daocheng left their sight, they wouldn't remember his appearance very clearly. When Third Master Yin heard the name Li Daocheng said, he sucked in a breath of cold air. He secretly rejoiced that he hadn't padded his chest in advance. Otherwise, he would have really screwed himself. Third Master Yin was considered to be very influential on the Red Sun planet. He had connections with both the good and the bad. However, he could only get half of the things Li Daocheng wanted. Third Master Yin could tell that Li Daocheng didn't want others to know what he wanted. He also sent a voice transmission and said, Mr. Li, some of the things you want are more precious. It's difficult for me to get them. I have to ask the new general manager of the Shadow Serene Square to see if there's any stock. I want them now. Take me to her, Li Daocheng said immediately. In fact, with Li Daocheng's status as a Diamond VIP, it was easy for him to enter the Shadow Serene Square and meet anyone he wanted. However, Li Daocheng didn't use his identity because he didn't want to be exposed. There were too many people in the Shadow Serene Square. He could easily be exposed. Li Daocheng tried his best not to use the identity that Old Man Zhang had given him. He hadn't activated the Diamond VIP card until now. Li Daocheng nodded. Then, he turned to Huang Jiran, who was standing to the side, and said, I'll get someone to take you back first. Huang Jiran pursed her lips and said reluctantly, Big Brother Li, don't you need me to be your guide? Li Daocheng smiled and said, Not for now. You can go back. Your father doesn't want you to stay in a place like this for too long. Huang Jiran pouted and said, I don't need him to care about me. I'm all grown up. In Li Daocheng's eyes, Huang Jiaran's appearance reminded him of his younger sister from his previous life. He couldn't help but reach out his hand to pat Huang Jiaran's little head and said, "Thank you for today. After I'm done with a few things, I'll treat you to a meal." "Really?" Huang Jiaran's gloomy mood immediately disappeared when she heard this. Her heart started to beat wildly again. "Is Big Brotherly asking me out?" Huang Jiaran's heart started to beat faster. Her beautiful face started to blush again. "Ha ha, of course. Do you think I can't even afford to treat you to a meal? Am I joking with you?" Li Daocheng couldn't help but laugh. "Nope." Huang Jiaran stuck out her tongue and said, "Okay, then it's a deal. I'll go back and wait for Big Brotherly to treat me." Li Daocheng smiled and nodded, saying, "Go ahead." After saying that, Li Daocheng said to the third Master Yin, "Send 2 trustworthy men to take Miss Huang back." The third Master Yin nodded repeatedly and then said to Liao Hui, "Ah Hui, you and Wild Dog take Miss Huang back. You must send her to the door and make sure she enters the house safely." Liao Hui, who had recovered a little, immediately stood up and said, "Yes, third master." After Huang Jiaran left, Li Daocheng followed the third Master Yin to the 3rd floor of the Serene House. With the third Master Yin leading the way, it was naturally smooth. Only Ajiao was with him. The rest of the third Master Yin's men were waiting in the private room. The layout of the Serene House was similar to that of the Blue Bay Star. The higher one went, the higher the level. It was impossible to go up without a corresponding status. The third Master Yin's status in the underground city was very honorable. It could be said that he was the only one outside of the Serene House. The third Master Yin was tactful. Although he was also one of the leaders of the underground city, he didn't stand on the opposite side of the Serene House. Instead, they were on good terms and had business dealings. When they reached the 3rd floor, a floor manager immediately led the third Master Yin into a luxurious reception room. After that, the floor manager went to inform the general manager of the Serene House. The third Master Yin felt that it was very satisfying to be able to show his value in front of Mr. Li. However, Shadow Serene Workshop is an exception. Look, just this reception room alone is much more luxurious than many 5-star hotels in Qiyang City. The general manager, who will be coming over later, was just transferred here a month ago. She is a strong career woman. To be able to climb to her position at such a young age, she is quite capable. She will definitely be able to get the materials that Mr. Li wants. Even if it is difficult, she will try her best to find them for my third son's sake. Just now, the floor manager was very respectful to the third Master Yin. This made him proud in front of Mr. Li. He was so excited that he couldn't stop talking. As he was talking, the door to the reception room opened. A woman with a hot figure wearing a cheongsam appeared outside the door. When the third Master Yin saw her, he quickly got up and was about to greet her with a smile. The cheongsam woman didn't seem to see the third Master Yin. Her charming eyes were full of smiles. She brushed past the third Master Yin and treated him like air. She smiled and walked to Li Daocheng. "Mr. Li, long time no see." As she spoke, she opened her arms and gave Li Daocheng a big hug. Chapter 205. Li Daocheng didn't expect to see Zhang Jiao on the Red Sun planet. This woman gave him a special feeling. Actually, she wasn't very pretty. The higher a female cultivator's cultivation level was, the more beautiful they would become. After entering the foundation establishment stage, there were almost no ugly women among the female cultivators. All of them were beautiful in their own way. But Zhang Jiao seemed to be an exception. Of course, she wasn't ugly, but she definitely wasn't pretty. Li Daocheng had seen many women since he woke up, but Zhang Jiao was the one who made him feel special. As for what was special about her, Li Daocheng couldn't tell. He could always see a kind of ambition in Zhang Jiao's eyes. Zhang Jiao's enthusiasm was beyond Li Daocheng's expectations. This hug was a bit abrupt for him. Li Daocheng and Zhang Jiao didn't have much interaction. If it weren't for Old Man Zhang, they wouldn't have known each other. Therefore, when Zhang Jiao hugged Li Daocheng as if there was no one else around, a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. "Our relationship isn't that good, right?" Li Daochong didn't raise his hand to hug Zheng Jiao, but he didn't reject her hug either. Zheng Jiao didn't mind Li Daochong's indifference at all. She even delayed the hug long enough. The third master Yin was stunned as he watched this woman, who was usually cruel and merciless, lean on Li Daochong like a little bird. Mr. Li's glorious image in the third master Yin's mind increased by another 3 points. Mr. Li looked like he was only 18 or 19 years old. How could he know so many awesome people? Young master and alone was enough to make the third master Yin act like a grandson in front of Li Daochong. Mr. Li's strength was also enough to make the third master Yin submit to him. These two were already amazing enough. He didn't expect Mr. Li to be old acquaintances with the newly transferred President Zheng of the Shadow Serene House. What was Mr. Li's background? The third master Yin's heart thumped furiously. Thinking about how he had just been acting cool in front of Mr. Li, he blushed. A Jiao stared blankly at President Zheng, who had thrown himself into Li Daochong's arms. In the past month or so, she had interacted with President Zheng several times. This CEO Zheng, who shared the same name as her, gave A Jiao the feeling that she was extremely difficult to approach. She did things swiftly and decisively. She was definitely a strong woman. Only men would submit to her. How could there be a man whom she would fall in love with? However, when President Zheng saw Mr. Li, she didn't have her usual cold demeanor. She seemed to have become the big sister next door. She was the kind of big sister who had a crush on the little brother next door. In the underground city, who would dare to not give face to Manager Zheng? One had to know that Manager Zheng had only been on planet Scarlet Sun for 1 or 2 years. It was said that he had an extraordinary background, and he was an important figure who would definitely be transferred to the headquarters of the Shadow Serene Workshop on Dark Parasol Planet. Not only that, but there were many people in the upper echelons of planet Scarlet Sun who were interested in Zheng Jiao. However, President Zheng had never treated them well. However, when she saw Mr. Li, President Zheng's personality changed completely. She went up to him and gave him a big hug. It looked like she wanted to become one with Mr. Li. What made A Jiao even more confused was that Mr. Li didn't seem to give President Zheng any face. He didn't even hug her back out of courtesy. If it were any other man, he would have hugged her back. He would take advantage of her if he could, but even if he couldn't, he would take advantage of her. Mr. Li didn't seem to have any intention of touching President Zheng, who had been on planet Scarlet Sun for less than a month, but had already become the goddess in the hearts of many big shots. A Jiao looked at Li Daochong with curiosity in her eyes. In her heart, she felt an uncontrollable fear towards this powerful and mysterious young man. Miss Zheng, you've been transferred to planet Scarlet Sun? Li Daochong asked casually. He saw that Zheng Jiao had no intention of letting go. Yes, I've been here for more than a month. Zheng Jiao replied. Only then did she let go of Li Daochong's hand. There was a hint of disappointment on her charming face. Zheng Jiao wanted to use this opportunity to get closer to Li Daochong. However, she didn't expect Li Daochong to be so uninterested. Could it be that she wasn't charming enough? This was the first time Zheng Jiao doubted herself. Ever since she joined Blue Bay Star, Zheng Jiao had treated Li Daochong as the most important springboard in her life. You've been promoted? Li Daochong continued to ask. It's all thanks to Mr. Li that I was able to get promoted. Zheng Jiao smiled. Thanks to me? Why? Li Daochong didn't understand what Zheng Jiao's promotion had to do with him. Zheng Jiao glanced at Third Master Yin and A Jiao, who were standing at the side. Then, she leaned close to Li Daochong's ear and whispered, Mr. Li, I was the one who accepted the order when you helped Owner Wei and Old Devil Zhang obtain the spiritual machine engine. Because of Mr. Li's help, we were able to obtain the source of the supply. After selling it, the Blue Bay Star branch made a huge profit. Owner Wei felt that I was capable and transferred me to Red Sun Star to be the general manager of the branch. However, I know that if it wasn't for Mr. Li, we wouldn't have been able to obtain the spiritual machine engine, even if Miss Wei was there. Old Man Zhang told me that it was all thanks to Mr. Li that we were able to kill the innocent girl that day. Otherwise, not only would we not be able to do business, if anything happened to Miss Wei, then I would have committed a huge sin. I'm afraid I wouldn't even be able to keep my life. Mr. Li, don't you think it's all thanks to you? Come to think of it, Mr. Li is my great benefactor. When Sung Jiao spoke, she was practically face to face with Li Daochong. She didn't try to avoid him at all, and her breath was filled with fragrance. Li Daochong was a young man. After all, it was impossible for him to not feel anything. However, Li Daochong's psychokinesis was strong. He only needed to focus a little, and he could get rid of all distracting thoughts. He wouldn't be controlled by her beauty. After hearing Song Jiao's words, Li Daochong nodded. I see, but it's Miss Tseng's own ability that allowed her to take on the job. It has nothing to do with me. I don't deserve to be called a great benefactor. Seng Jiao covered her mouth and smiled. Mr. Li, no matter how you look at it, you are my great benefactor. The intimacy between Seng Jiao and Li Daochong was enough to shock the third Master Yin. Now that Song Jiao said that Mr. Li was her great benefactor, the third Master Yin couldn't imagine the reason behind it. He wanted to show off his connections and value to Mr. Li, but he was slapped in the face on the spot. Why would Mr. Li need a referral from him? Li Daochong and Sung Jiao chatted happily, leaving the third Master Yin and Jiao aside. However, the two didn't complain at all. After all, Sung Jiao's identity wasn't ordinary. Mr. Li was even more so. He was a man with extraordinary strength and a mysterious identity. Even though the third Master Yin and Jiao were big shots in the underground forces of planet Crimson Sun, they could only be considered as followers in front of these two. Sung Jiao's appearance gave Li Daochong great convenience. He didn't need to activate his Diamond VIP card to receive Diamond-level treatment. After the greetings, they returned to the main topic. The moment Li Daochong opened his mouth, Sung Jiao immediately informed the storeroom to send all the materials over. Li Daochong wanted to pay, but Sung Jiao refused. The third Master Yin was shocked to see these precious materials brought to Mr. Li in less than 10 minutes, but Sung Jiao didn't want to pay. Was there such a good thing? These materials were worth at least tens of millions of Federation dollars, and Sung Jiao wanted to give them to Mr. Li for free. How close was their relationship? Could it be that Mr. Li and Sung Jiao had a deeper relationship? Were they lovers? The third Master Yin used his imagination. Naturally, the third Master Yin didn't know that Sung Jiao had won hundreds of millions of Federation dollars because of Li Daochong. These things were just a small return gift from Sung Jiao. Li Daochong didn't want to accept a favor for no reason, so he had to pay no matter what. Sung Jiao saw that Li Daochong was a little unhappy, so she had no choice but to tell Li Daochong about the bet in a low voice. After knowing, Li Daochong had a strange expression on his face. This woman was really crazy. She really thought highly of him. However, Li Daochong didn't refuse anymore. He took all the materials worth tens of millions of Federation dollars and then left the Shadow Serene Square with Sung Jiao. The third Master Yin personally sent Li Daochong back to Beiyang University, but Li Daochong only asked the third Master Yin to send him back to Chiang City to keep a low profile. Then he got off the car and went back to school. In the following days, Li Daochong devoted himself to making level 7 spiritual talismans and further strengthening his body. The effect of the spirit qi wasn't so obvious anymore. During this time, Li Daochong went to the underground city alone to find Sung Jiao to buy the star-enhancing liquid and the level 7 steel puppet. He also asked about the melted crystal. Even Sung Jiao couldn't take it out in a short time. She needed time to find the source. Li Daochong's goal was to pass the test directly. Before taking the test, he wanted to upgrade his weapons, talismans, and cultivation by 1 level. Now that he had successfully reached the late stage of the Qi-gathering realm, all that was left was to upgrade his talismans and weapons. During this time, Li Daochong went to the infamily and cured all the 43 infamily members who had contracted a strange disease. Of course, he didn't do it for free. He told Manian, who had personally received him, that he would pay 1 million Federation dollars for each person he cured. And Manian didn't say anything and directly gave Li Daochong 50 million. Li Daochong wanted to use this money to buy the melted crystal. Chapter 206. Beiyang University, Dean's Office. Dao Chong, are you really not going to participate in Beiyang University's assessment? Qian Shanghai looked at Li Daochong anxiously, but the latter's face was expressionless. Grandpa Qian, I'm not going to participate. I already signed up for the direct test a month ago. Li Daochong had never told Qian Shanghai about this, but there were only 3 days left before he had to take the military-provided shuttle to the 9-ring star field. He had no choice but to say it. What? Qian Shanghai's old eyes widened, and he almost jumped up. Participate in the direct test? No, absolutely not. Dao Chong, you're courting death. If you die, how am I going to explain it to Chu Girl? Grandpa Qian, I'll be fine, Li Daochong replied. You'll be fine? How can you be fine? Dao Chong, don't mess around. To put it bluntly, the direct test is just a scapegoat recruited by the military. There's only a slim chance of survival, Qian Shanghai said exasperatedly. How can there be experience without danger? Grandpa Qian, I've recovered a lot in the past few months. I should be able to pass the test, Li Daochong continued. No, I won't agree to it no matter what, Qian Shanghai said without any explanation. I've already signed up. The military will send someone to pick me up in 3 days. Qian Shanghai was being unreasonable. Li Daochong wasn't angry at all. Instead, he felt very warm in his heart. He knew very well how much Qian Shanghai had sacrificed for Li Daochong. Although this old man usually looked like a playful old man, he had always been very concerned about the war at the front lines. He had always wanted to nurture talents for the Federation. In the past few months at Beiyang University, Qian Shanghai had done a lot of work to raise the strength of the students of the cultivation school of Beiyang University. Yung Byung-ha couldn't stop smiling. Before Qian Shanghai came, there wasn't even a single student in the Qi gathering stage in the 2nd year of Beiyang University. Now, there are more than a dozen. Their foundation and talent might still be incomparable to that of students from good universities, but this kind of progress was already quite astonishing. From this, it could be seen that Qian Shanghai had quite a lot of experience in training early-stage practitioners. He knew how to bring out each person's strengths and stimulate their potential. Of course, Qian Shanghai was also very concerned about Li Daochong. He would often send some spirit liquid over for Li Daochong to soak in. In order to treat Li Daochong's broken spirit root, he almost flipped through every book about healing in the library of Beiyang University. He even found a few manuals on self-cultivation and gave them to Li Daochong. Unfortunately, these manuals were of no use to Li Daochong. Li Daochong felt that the number of manuals was not important, but the quality. No matter how many manuals he learned, they would only be a waste of time. Li Daochong only wanted to start cultivating the Great Void Sword technique after he finished cultivating the 9 Split Saber technique. He would not cultivate other manuals for the time being. Kid, are you trying to anger this old man to death? It wasn't easy to transfer you to Planet Crimson Sun, but you actually went to participate in the direct test without saying anything. Qian Shanghai was really angry. Li Daochong saw that Qian Shanghai was very angry and wanted to tell him that his spirit root was not broken. However, just as he was about to speak, a student ran in and said, Dean Qian, Principal Zheng wants to see you for a meeting. Just as he was about to speak, Qian Shanghai stood up and glared at Li Daochong. He snorted coldly and left in a huff, looking like an old man who did not care about Li Daochong anymore. Li Daochong said to Qian Shanghai's back, Grandpa Qian, I will definitely come back alive. Qian Shanghai's footsteps paused for a moment before he quickened his pace and left the office. That night, Li Daochong was meditating in his dormitory when there was a knock on the door. When he opened the door, he saw Qian Shanghai standing outside angrily. Without waiting for Li Daochong to speak, Qian Shanghai stuffed 2 items into his hands and said, Take these 2 treasures. They should be useful to you. One is a mid-grade, earth-ranked magic robe. Don't be fooled by its ordinary appearance. As long as you don't encounter a malevolent spirit grade dark ghost, anything below the malevolent spirit grade will not be able to penetrate this magic robe. The other is the Gale boots, which are also mid-grade, earth-ranked magic treasures. For you, there's only one use: escape. If you can't beat your opponent, then run. With that, Qian Shanghai turned and left. His back seemed a little lonely, and his back seemed to be bent. Li Daochong wanted to call out to Qian Shanghai, but the latter had already disappeared. Below the dormitory, under a tree at the edge of the field, Yung Byung-ha stood there. Qian Shanghai walked over with his hands behind his back. "Brother Shanghai, are you going to let that kid die, just like that?" Yung Byung-ha asked in confusion. "Sai, I'm old. I don't care about the matters of the young anymore. Bing-ha, should I retire? I can't help but watch such a good seedling being beaten into a cripple. Now, I can't help but watch him participate in that F*King direct test." Qian Shanghai sighed. "Why can't you do anything about it? Just put that kid in solitary confinement. There are many people who quit halfway through the test. We don't need him. Or should I find some connections and find an excuse so that the kid can't participate?" Yung Byung-ha suggested. Qian Shanghai shook his head and said, "Doing that will only backfire. He's already suffered a big blow from such a serious injury. If he dares to participate in the test, at least it means that his heart hasn't given up. If the heart is dead, it's worse than being crippled. I've seen too many examples of geniuses being reduced to mediocrity because of their dead hearts. I really can't find a way to restore his spirit root. Let him be. I'd rather my students die in battle than become walking corpses. Letting Li Daochong go just like that is no different from committing suicide. It's not like you don't know what the direct test is." Yung Byung-ha was a little anxious when he saw his old friend's gloomy appearance. Qian Shanghai looked up at the starry sky. "Little Chu, he's so similar to you." In the dormitory, Li Daochong held the two magic treasures that Qian Shanghai had given him. His heart was filled with warmth, and he clenched his fists tightly. "Grandpa Qian, don't worry. I'll definitely come back alive and represent Beiyang University in the joint examination of 100 schools." 2 days later, in a secluded place outside Beiyang City, a young man and a young woman sat cross-legged more than 10 meters away from each other, quietly waiting for something. The young man was Li Daochong. The young woman had a delicate face and a tall figure. She was wearing a cheap, tight-fitting black training suit. The young woman's delicate face looked a little haggard. From time to time, she would look curiously at Li Daochong. The young woman's name was Ling Wei. She wasn't from Qiyang City. Instead, she lived in a small place called Qingyuan Town on the other side of planet Qiyang. Her family was poor, and her parents couldn't afford to send her to a cultivation academy. Ling Fei didn't want to be cooped up in such a small place. She dreamed that one day she could also soar into the sky, become a cultivator, and become an enviable fairy. It was just that such a dream was too far away for her. She couldn't even afford to go to a mediocre university, let alone cultivate. Her parents had already done their best to support her through high school. She could only rely on herself to earn her university tuition fees. However, the high tuition fees were too much for her to bear. Cultivation also required money. Ordinary jobs were far from enough to satisfy her needs. For this reason, Ling Fei had to go to places like nightclubs to accompany people to eat, drink, and play. Of course, Ling Fei only sold her looks and not her body. At first, it wasn't bad. After half a year, with her good looks and excellent figure, she attracted many regular customers. Many rich businessmen would come specially for her. In just half a year, she had earned more than 100,000 Federation coins. This money was enough for her early school fees and cultivation expenses. However, the good times did not last long. That kind of place was filled with all kinds of people. Although most people were well-behaved, there would always be some people who would bully others and make excessive demands. If one did not agree, they would be retaliated against. 3 months ago, Ling Fei received a few guests. One of them was Ouyang Guan, a collateral descendant of one of the 4 major families of planet Qiyang. When he saw Ling Fei, he went up to her and made all kinds of excessive demands. At first, Ling Fei tolerated it. However, not only did Ouyang Guan not stop, he even became more aggressive and tore Ling Fei's clothes. Ling Fei was furious on the spot. She had been hiding her strength and went berserk, injuring Ouyang Guan. In the end, she caused trouble. Ouyang Guan threatened to rape Ling Fei first, and then kill her. With the Ouyang family's strength, Ouyang Guan's words were not a joke. At that time, Ouyang Guan had called more than 10 gangsters over with a phone call. All of them were cultivators. Some of them were even stronger than Ling Fei. They had come over to cause trouble. Fortunately, the boss of the nightclub that Ling Fei was in had some power and was able to stop them. However, Ling Fei was still injured. Under the cover of a few good friends, Ling Fei escaped. Her identity in the nightclub was fake, so it wasn't easy to find her. Ling Fei's real identity was a second-year student in the ordinary class of Beiyang University. After returning to school, Ling Fei didn't dare to take half a step out of the school gate. However, Ling Fei heard that Ouyang Guan used a lot of connections and power to find her. He was determined to catch her. After causing such a big trouble, Ling Fei was almost at her wit's end. However, she had always had a secret. 3 years ago, when she was traveling on planet Qiyang, she encountered a black python, a level 7 wild beast. At that time, Ling Fei was only at the 3rd level of Qi refining. How could she be a match for a level 7 wild beast? However, the black python was in the middle of molting and was relatively weak. It didn't notice Ling Fei and immediately disappeared into the mountains after molting. Ling Fei knew that the black python skin was a great supplement and was extremely effective for refining the body. She immediately roasted and ate the python skin. It was also this fortuitous encounter that allowed Ling Fei's cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds. However, she had been deliberately hiding her strength. Now that she was at the peak of Qi refining, she could definitely enter the elite class of Beiyang University and become one of the top 5 students. Ling Fei hid her strength and studied in a low-key manner just to get one of the places in Beiyang University. However, when she offended Ouyang Guan, everything became a bubble. If she showed up, Ouyang Guan could kill her. Chapter 207. There were at least 1,000 cultivation planets in the 4-ring starfield and as many cultivation schools as there were hairs on an ox. Hundreds of millions of students wanted to participate in the joint examination of 100 schools. However, very few students chose to participate in the direct examination. There is only one reason for this. The death rate of the direct examination was extremely high. After hundreds of years of conducting the direct examination, everyone knew what was going on. Thus, Ling Fei thought that she was probably the only one on planet Crimson Sun who had participated in this D*MN direct examination. However, when she arrived at the location notified by the military, there was already a young man waiting there. She was actually not the only one. Ling Fei was a little curious about the young man who had arrived before her. What was the reason for this young man to choose this path of no return? Could it be that he had offended someone he shouldn't have offended like her and had no choice but to participate in the direct examination? Ling Fei secretly probed the young man's cultivation level several times. His aura was pitifully weak, at most at the 5th level of Qi refinement, far inferior to her. With such strength, wasn't participating in the direct examination just courting death? She was at the peak of Qi refinement, so she would basically be courting death. What kind of circumstances made him choose the path of death? Looking at the young man's clean face and thin figure, Ling Fei's maternal instincts were aroused. She felt that this young man's background must be very pitiful. They were both in the same boat, so Ling Fei felt very close to him. Finally, she took the initiative to say hello. Li Daochong had naturally noticed that this girl had been staring at him. Hearing her take the initiative to greet him, he turned and said, "Hello. You're also participating in the direct examination?" Ling Fei's eyes darted around as she asked tentatively. She didn't want to make a mistake. What if he just happened to be here? Li Daochong nodded. That was true. Ling Fei pursed her cherry-red lips, and her gaze became increasingly sympathetic. She took the initiative to walk forward and extend her hand in a friendly manner. "I'm also participating in the direct examination. Let's get to know each other. I'm Ling Fei, Li Daochong." Li Daochong indifferently reported his name. "Student Li, your cultivation is so weak. What made you decide to participate in the direct test? Ling Fei asked curiously. A girl's gossipy spirit would never change no matter where she went. Li Daochong pursed his lips and looked at Ling Fei for the first time. No reason. I just want to participate. Ling Fei saw that Li Daochong didn't want to say anything, so she could only give up. She was a little angry in her heart. She approached him with good intentions, but this brat didn't appreciate it at all. There was no expression on that little cool face. Sai, forget it. Seeing that you're so pitiful, I won't bicker with a little brother like you. We're all in dire straits, so there's no need to make things difficult for each other. Ling Fei thought for a while and patted Li Daochong's shoulder. Student Li, in the entire Crimson Sun planet, only the two of us will be participating in the direct test. When the test starts, follow Big Sister. As long as you don't run around and listen to Big Sister's commands, Big Sister will have a high chance of keeping your little life. Li Daochong looked at Ling Fei with a hint of interest in his eyes. In his heart, he had a good impression of this girl that he had just met. Thanks, Li Daochong replied. He raised his head and looked at the sky. He felt a slight tremor in the distant sky. Ling Fei didn't feel anything. Seeing that Li Daochong was willing to accept her protection, her sense of responsibility exploded. She began to speak frankly and confidently, telling Li Daochong some things that he should take note of. Ling Fei had seen all kinds of big-bellied and oily young men in the nightclub, where she indulged in debauchery. When she suddenly met such a clean and bright young man with a strong student aura, she liked him very much. Her desire to protect him was aroused little by little. Ling Fei had her own trump card, so she was quite confident in passing the direct test. The magical python skin that she ate was the skin of a magical python that was about to advance. It was extremely precious, and there were remnants of the magical python's mysterious ice chi in it. Moreover, that magical python skin was 30 meters long and 1 meter in diameter. Ling Fei ate it for a week before she finished it. In the following year, Ling Fei's skin would molt every month. The remaining unawakened spiritual veins would all awaken. One of the spiritual veins became an ice spiritual vein, allowing her to have the aptitude of a mysterious heaven spiritual vein. Not only that, every time she molted, her physique would become stronger. Now, she had already achieved the mysterious blood jade bone. Although Ling Fei's cultivation was only at the peak of the Qi refinement realm, her actual strength was above the early stage of the Qi gathering realm. This was also why she had the confidence to take part in the direct test. As long as she survived, she would be able to take part in the joint examination of 100 schools. Ling Fei was very confident in this. Student Li, it's said that the direct test is actually a suicide squad recruited by the military. They're going to take part in a small-scale war on the front lines, and the death rate is extremely high. When we reach the destination, you mustn't run off. Follow me. Ling Fei was speaking when a brilliant light flashed from the horizon and interrupted her. A shuttle dozens of meters long descended from the sky. In the blink of an eye, it landed in the area where Li Daochong and Ling Fei were. The side door of the shuttle opened, and a sergeant wearing the Federation Cultivation Army uniform got out. He glanced at Li Daochong and Ling Fei, then used his wristwatch to scan their faces. Beep. The wristwatch beeped, followed by a robotic female voice. Identity confirmed. The sergeant's expression was solemn, and he looked at Li Daochong and Ling Fei as if he was looking at dead people. Follow me. After saying that, the officer turned around and boarded the Feiyu shuttle. Li Daochong followed closely behind, and Ling Fei followed closely behind. After boarding the shuttle, Li Daochong's expression turned a little strange. The military shuttle was indeed a military shuttle. It was completely different from the shuttle that Li Daochong had taken before. The interior was actually made of gung metal, and it was obvious how luxurious it was. The civilian cultivation manufacturing industry used pan-silver, the most basic magic treasure metal. It was relatively abundant in the universe and was relatively easy to mine. Pan-silver could be used to create mid-grade, earth-rank magic treasures, which was pretty good. Gung metal was an even higher-grade magic treasure metal. It was much less abundant in the universe than pan silver. Whether it was hardness, toughness, or spirituality, it was a grade higher than pan silver. It was a basic material used to create heaven-rank magic treasures. The price of gunmetal was 10 times that of pan silver, and 70% of the interior of the shuttle was made of gunmetal. It could be said that the entire shuttle was a magic treasure. Not only that, there were dozens of small spirit cannons on the outside of the shuttle. It was a standard space battle shuttle. Li Daochong sighed in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. He followed the sergeant through a metal corridor and entered a large room. There were hundreds of seats inside, and there were only a dozen or so people. Clearly, these people were all students participating in the direct test. The sergeant brought Li Daochong and Ling Fei in and said, "Find a seat and sit. In the next few days, you will have to go to various cultivation planets to pick up people. Someone will take you to your rooms in a while." The sergeant turned and left after saying that. Li Daochong casually found a seat at the back and sat down. Ling Fei sat beside Li Daochong. They couldn't feel whether the shuttle had taken off or not. In short, they didn't feel the slightest jolt. The dozen or so people in the large room all looked at Li Daochong and Ling Fei when they entered, but they quickly retracted their gazes. Many of them had a look of disappointment on their faces. They were looking for companions. If there was someone powerful, they would go up and get familiar with them so that they could ride on their coattails during the test. Li Daochong and Ling Fei's aura were both at the qi refinement stage. These people who were obviously going to be cannon fodder naturally wouldn't attract their attention. They didn't even feel the need to greet them. For the next half a day, people were brought in one after another, but the receptionist that the sergeant said was going to arrange rooms never appeared. Most people didn't cause much of a stir after entering, but there were two exceptions. The first was the 3 people who were brought in from planet Kanwu. All of them were at the qi condensation stage, and one of them had an aura that was close to the peak of the qi condensation stage. This kind of strength was enough to pass all kinds of tests on other cultivation planets, but unfortunately, he was on planet Kanwu, a second-class cultivation planet. There were too many geniuses here, and there were aristocratic families everywhere. Being at the late stage of the qi condensation stage was nothing special. The number 1 genius of planet Kanwu was already a foundation establishment stage cultivator before he was 20. This kind of talent was simply inhuman. Of course, even if planet Kanwu was so powerful, being at the late stage of the qi condensation stage was still quite impressive. He should have been able to get a spot. There must be a reason for participating in the direct test. In fact, all the students who participated in the direct test were forced by circumstances and had no other choice. Otherwise, who would be so stupid as to throw their lives away? The direct test was to go to the front lines. No matter how strong you were, there was no guarantee that you would survive. When the large room was almost full, the receptionist that arranged the rooms finally arrived. The so-called receptionist was actually 7 or 8 young soldiers. These soldiers looked to be no more than 25 years old. Each of them had eyes like torches, and the aura they gave off was neither strong nor weak. They were all at the early stage of the qi condensation stage, but they gave off a threatening aura. Li Daochong and Ling Fei were sitting in the last row. After the people in front of them were arranged, 2 soldiers came to bring them to their rooms. When one of the soldiers saw Ling Fei, he was stunned for a moment. The 2 of them were brought out of the large room and into a long and narrow corridor. After walking for a while, Ling Fei suddenly screamed. Chapter 208. Ling Fei's piercing scream caused the soldier who had reached for Ling Fei's buttocks to hurriedly withdraw his hand in fright. This soldier was called Wang Xinjun. He had been in the army for more than a year, but he had never even seen a sow, much less a woman. When Wang Xinjun saw Ling Fei, his heart thumped violently, and his lower body felt something. The desire that had been suppressed for so long erupted like an unstoppable volcano. Outside the room, Wang Xinjun walked behind Ling Fei, her round and perky buttocks possessing an irresistible charm. For some reason, Wang Xinjun reached out to touch them. This was military territory, and Wang Shengjuan's older brother, Wang Shenghu, was the captain of this shuttle, a captain. It was precisely because of this that Wang Shenzhun unscrupulously reached out to touch those perky and alluring buttocks. Wang Shenzhun was well aware that most of the students who had come to participate in the direct test had no background. Many of them even had miserable backgrounds, and some of them had even committed crimes and wanted to use the direct test to turn things around. And for the female students, the results of participating in the direct test might be even more miserable. This was because once they went to the front lines, women would not receive any preferential treatment. Not only would they have to face Dark Ghost, but they would also have to face men who were bloodthirsty from killing. Although there were female soldiers in the cultivation army, they were separated from the male soldiers. They did not belong to the same division, nor did they carry out missions together. The only exception was the direct test every year. Receiving students for the direct test was a cushy job for many soldiers. It was impossible to become a receptionist without some connections in the army. Wang Shenzhun naturally relied on his older brother, Wang Xinghu, to become a receptionist. Why was the job of a receptionist a cushy one? Because they could come into contact with pure and lovely female students. Not every soldier would dream of becoming a receptionist. Every year, between 1,000 and 2,000 students participated in the direct test, sometimes more and sometimes less. But no matter how many there were, the number of girls was usually only 30%, or sometimes none. Almost half of these girls did not die at the hands of Dark Ghost, but went missing. As for where they went, no one knew. They were just thought to be killed by Dark Ghost. Wang Shenzhun had heard from his brother in the past few months that he had been killed by the soldiers who were on the same mission as him. Wang Shenzhun didn't expect this hot and beautiful girl to be so hot. Last time, he heard from a comrade who worked as a receptionist last year that he took a fancy to a girl last year. He sneaked into the girl's room at night, and the girl didn't even dare to make a sound. Later on, that girl died during the direct test, and no one knew about this matter. After Wang Shenzhun heard this, his heart itched. Today, when he saw Ling Fei, he wanted to imitate that comrade of his. Who would have thought that when he reached out to touch her, or to be precise, it couldn't even be considered a touch. It was just a touch, and this female classmate let out such a sharp cry. Wang Shenzhun was startled. However, he quickly recovered and looked at Ling Fei with a fearless expression. "It's none of your business where I put my hands. Can't you see it's in my trouser pocket?" Wang Shengjuan's gaze carried a trace of suspicion. "You?" Ling Fei's eyes widened in disbelief as she looked at the soldier who was lying through his teeth. "Hurry up, don't dilly-dally. We still have to wait for the others." As Wang Shenzhun spoke, he pushed Ling Fei. However, the place he pushed was extremely sensitive. It was Ling Fei's chest. How could Ling Fei give in? In a flash, she swung her hand and slapped him. Slap! The crisp sound echoed in the corridor. Wang Shengjuan's face burned. He covered his face with his hand and looked furious. How could he have imagined that this girl participating in the direct test would have such a fiery temper? She actually dared to hit him. "You're courting death." Wang Shengjuan's face darkened. He growled and was about to make a move. "Shengjun, pay attention to your military image. There are spirit cameras here," another soldier hurriedly reminded him. Wang Shengjuan's heart thumped, and he hurriedly withdrew his fist. His anger had almost caused him to commit a grave mistake. If this was filmed and the higher-ups saw it, not only would he be dismissed from the military, he would also be sent to the military court for trial. At the very least, he would be jailed for a few years. Beating up a cultivation university student was a serious crime in the Federation. A sinister light flashed in Wang Shengjuan's eyes. He snorted coldly and looked at Ling Fei. In the end, he didn't make a move. When Ling Fei screamed, Li Daochong turned around and saw everything. He raised his eyebrows and had no intention of helping. It wasn't that Li Daochong didn't want to help, but that he didn't need to. He had already noticed that there were spies all around the corridor. Ling Fei glared at Wang Shenzhun. The latter stuck his tongue to his cheek and laughed. "Little girl, you're spicy enough. I like it. Haha, let's not rush to tongue-pulling planet. This daddy will slowly play with you." Ling Fei slapped him. Actually, she regretted it in her heart. Offending this group of veterans wouldn't do her any good in completing the direct test, because these veterans would be carrying out missions with them. Without them, these students were just a bunch of headless flies. How could they know what to do? These veterans were all veterans who had been on the battlefield for a long time. When facing Dark Ghost, they were much stronger than inexperienced students. If she offended them, not only would she be ostracized, when she reached her destination, they would probably arrange for her to do the most dangerous things. Ling Fei wanted to cry, but she couldn't. Why was she so unlucky? Why did she have to run into these lustful guys everywhere she went? Was the Federation's cultivation method just for show? After Ling Fei entered her room, she closed the door and threw away all distracting thoughts. She took out a red pill and swallowed it. This was a spirit-gathering pill that she had bought with all her savings. It wasn't a high-grade pill, but it was still very useful for her. She couldn't afford a small spirit-cultivating pill, so she could only eat a cheap one. Ling Fei knew that she had offended that veteran and wouldn't have a good time when she reached her destination. She could only continue to improve her strength in the shortest time possible so that she could take her fate into her own hands. When Wang Xinjun left, he glared at Ling Fei's perky breasts. He would make Ling Fei pay him back double for the slap she had given him on planet tongue pulling. Wang Xingjun's brother, Wang Xinghu, was the leader of the second squadron for this mission. He was in charge of the second batch of students on planet tongue pulling. There were a total of 1,500 students taking the test this time. They were divided into 5 batches and sent to planet tongue pulling. Wang Xinghu's batch was the second batch. There were 300 people in total. After receiving them, everyone would go directly to planet tongue pulling to carry out the decapitation operation ordered by the higher-ups. Planet tongue pulling was located at the border between the 9 and 8 ring star fields. It wasn't at the front, but at the back of the front line. Planet tongue pulling was originally called Planet Puyun. Ever since the Dark Ghost opened a passage to this place, Planet Puyun was no longer peaceful. It was like a purgatory of tongue pulling. In just a few days, half of the planet's population had died at the hands of hundreds of thousands of invading Dark Ghosts. The military named this planet tongue pulling because there were a few tongue-pulling ghosts on this planet. These ghosts specifically targeted people and released a fatal suction force. They sucked out a person's tongue, along with their soul and vitality, and devoured them. This was where the name of the tongue-ripping ghost came from. Among the ghosts, the tongue-ripping ghost was a relatively low-level ghost, only slightly more powerful than a top-level great ghost. It was equivalent to a practitioner in the late or peak of the chi condensation realm. The situation at the front line was urgent, and the cultivation army didn't have enough people. It was too wasteful to send those powerhouses overseeing a region. Killing the tongue-pulling ghosts was a matter of minutes, but finding them was not so easy. The military naturally wouldn't let the powerhouses waste time on such a trivial matter. If they sent a proper cultivation army to sweep through, there might be a gap in the front line. They were afraid that they would fall for the Hades trick of luring the tiger away from the mountain. But planet tongue-pulling could not fall under the control of the Dark Ghosts. If the news got out, the military would lose all face. After thinking about it, it was perfect to complete this mission as a direct test. In fact, it wasn't rare for Dark Ghosts to suddenly open a passage on a planet in the 9-ring starfield. This kind of thing happened almost every month, but this time it was more serious. In the next few days, they picked up the students taking the test from the various planets. 3 days later, all the students arrived. The flying shuttle opened a space door and flew toward the 9-ring starfield. Another 3 days passed. After passing through 8 space doors, they finally arrived at the border between the 8-ring starfield and the 9-ring starfield, above planet tongue pulling. This flying shuttle was called Flying Feather. It was a light flying shuttle mainly used for landing and transporting people. The Flying Feather landed on a small mountain on planet tongue pulling. Below the mountain was the once most prosperous city on planet tongue pulling, Puyun City. Chapter 209. Everyone, listen up. The core mission of this direct test is to capture the tongue-ripping malicious ghost. No matter what method you use, as long as you can capture or kill a tongue-ripping malicious ghost, you will immediately receive a direct card. If you find a tongue-ripping malicious ghost but don't have the ability to capture or kill it, send out a location signal, and you will also receive a direct card to participate in the preliminary examination of the 100 schools. Wang Shenghu's voice boomed like a bell as he stood in the open space outside the flying feather ship. The 300 students who were participating in the direct test for various reasons stood in the open space at the top of the mountain with different expressions. Many of them looked down at the desolate and dark city complex that stretched as far as the eye could see and felt a slight fear in their hearts. The strange cries that occasionally rang out made them feel an uncontrollable fear in their hearts. I'll ask one last time. Is there anyone who wants to withdraw? It's not too late to withdraw now. Wang Xinghu's fierce gaze swept over the crowd. Several seconds passed, and no one spoke. Very good. From now on, there's only one choice left if you want to withdraw, and that is to die. Apart from the core mission, every malicious ghost in Puyun City is your enemy. If you encounter one, don't hold back and kill without mercy. The more dark ghosts you kill and the higher your level, the higher your chances of receiving a direct card will be. Now, split into groups of 10 and split into 30 groups. Follow the veterans into the city and enjoy the grand occasion of the ghost parade. Ha ha ha. Wang Shenghu laughed coarsely and then turned to return to the flying feather ship. Apart from the 300 students, there were also 30 veterans on the open space on the short mountain. These veterans were already in groups of 3. The students' groups had already been arranged on the flying feather ship. Ling Fei and Li Daochong were in the same group, but Ling Fei wasn't in the mood to protect her fellow countryman, Li Daochong. Her thoughts were all on Wang Xinjun, and one of the 3 veterans in her group was Wang Xinjun. Ling Fei's hands involuntarily clenched into fists. She had already made up her mind to fly alone as soon as she entered the city. Ling Fei was certain that Wang Xinjun had purposely placed her in the same group as him. Entering Puyun City was like entering the wildlands. Everything depended on one's strength. The weak could only be manipulated by the strong. Wang Xinjun is in the early stage of qi gathering, and his cultivation level isn't high, just like most of the veterans, but the strength of the cultivator army is much stronger than that of the local practitioners. His fighting strength, which has been honed through many battles, is naturally not something that the rear practitioners can compare with. Even though Ling Fei had already touched the threshold of the early stage of the qi gathering realm, and only needed an opportunity to break through, and her physical strength was far more powerful than the average cultivator, but she was still not sure that she could defeat Wang Xinjun. Moreover, Wang Xinjun was not alone, but all three of them were at the early stage of the qi gathering realm. Each of them had a strong, baleful qi. After Wang Shenghu finished his speech, more than 300 people descended the mountain and headed towards Puyun City. At the foot of the mountain, they split up into groups. Wang Xinjun is the leader of Ling Fei's group. From the time they got on the flying shuttle, he would occasionally look at Ling Fei with a playful gaze. Li Daochong walked at the back of the group. He had already spread out his psychokinesis, and nothing within a 2-kilometer radius could escape his perception. The short mountain was only a few kilometers away from Puyun City. Li Daochong's group quickly arrived outside the city. On the way, Ling Fei tried to find an opportunity to slip away several times, but Wang Xinjun walked at the back of the group, keeping a close eye on her. Ling Fei was worried that Wang Xinjun would secretly attack her, so she had no choice but to stick close to Li Daochong. Li Daochong noticed Ling Fei's actions, but he pretended not to know anything. In fact, he already had a plan in mind. He didn't care about Wang Xinjun at all. If that guy was just going through the motions of leading their group to wipe out the dark ghosts, then so be it. But if Wang Xinjun really wanted to take revenge on Ling Fei, Li Daochong wouldn't mind keeping him in Puyun City forever. In this place, cultivation techniques and the Federation government were all just floating clouds. Only strength was king. Wang Xinjun saw that Ling Fei was sticking close to Li Daochong, even holding onto Li Daochong's arm with one hand. Her towering breasts would occasionally rub against that brat's arm, and the flames of jealousy in his heart flared up for no reason. In Wang Shengjuan's eyes, Ling Fei was already in his bag. How could he watch her throw herself into someone else's arms? Leading this group were 3 veterans. Besides Wang Xinjun, there were 2 other veterans. One was called Chen Naiwu, and the other was called Song Fongrong. Song Fongrong was a medic and an apothecary. Every group had a female medic soldier. These female soldiers had been sent here because they had committed a crime and were here to atone for it. Otherwise, the medic soldiers would only need to stay behind the front lines and wouldn't need to enter the front lines directly. As a medic, Song Fongrong had neglected her duty and used the wrong elixir, resulting in the death of an injured soldier. The crime of neglecting her duty was enough to ruin Song Fongrong's life. When she went to military court, she requested to atone for her mistake. Thus, she was sent here. The direct test was, to a certain extent, a small-scale war. It was considered the second front line, and usually no female soldiers were willing to go. The military could only look for female soldiers who had committed a crime to atone for their mistakes. If they could survive, Fan Xian's previous incident would be written off. However, they would only be spared from jail. It would be impossible for them to continue staying in the cultivation army. They would be given a discharge fee and sent home. Song Fongrong didn't want to go to jail, so she came to planet tongue-pulling to participate in the direct test. When she found out that Wang Shengjuan's brother was one of the examiners for this test, she tried to curry favor with Wang Xinjun. The route that Wang Shengjuan's group had arranged was the safest among the 30 groups. Besides Li Daochong and Ling Fei, there were 8 other students in this group. There were 6 males and 2 females. In total, there were 7 males and 3 females. During the few days on the shuttle, all the students knew that Wang Shengjuan's brother was the captain, Wang Xinghu. Thus, they were all very respectful to Wang Xinjun. Besides Li Daochong and Ling Fei, the other 8 students were personally selected by Wang Xinjun. Dark ghosts wreaked havoc in Puyun City. Even if they chose the safest route, they couldn't avoid them. There were dark ghosts everywhere. As soon as they entered the city, they encountered a group of small ghosts. The leader was a small ghost general. The rest were all wolf ghost disciples. Wolf ghost disciples weren't strong individually. A 5th-level Qi refinement cultivator could deal with them. However, this type of wolf-shaped ghost body had very similar habits to wolves. They liked to move in groups. The combat strength of a group of wolf ghost disciples would increase exponentially. A 7th-level Qi refinement cultivator might not be able to defeat them. However, in the eyes of veterans like Wang Xinjun, the wolf ghost disciples weren't worth mentioning. They were just food. To put it bluntly, they were cannon fodder for the Hades. They weren't even cannon fodder. Big Brother Jun, I'll go take care of these wolf ghost disciples. A boy volunteered. Go ahead. Wang Xinjun nodded. That boy was called Lu Yu. He was fat and looked like a meatball. He was an 11th layer of the aura refining realm, but he did have some skills. He went up and quickly took care of the group of wraith wolves as well as the wraith generals. Lu Yu ran back eagerly. Wang Xinjun nodded. Not bad, kid. Although these wolf ghost disciples aren't very strong, you were able to take care of them all in a minute. Your foundation is very solid. Even if you don't get a direct card, you still have a good chance of getting a quasi-direct card. However, if you run into a slightly more powerful green ghost, I'm afraid you won't be able to handle it. Big Brother Jun, with you here, we can do whatever we want in Puyun City. Aren't I here to ride your coattails? Lu Yu flattered. What Lu Yu said is right. It's our honor to be in Brother Jun's group. I heard from a few veterans that Brother Jun is one of the top soldiers in the army. He once killed a grade 6 desolate beast with his bare hands. On the frontline battlefield, he even had a battle record of killing 2 powerful ghosts. To be able to be in Brother Jun's group is a blessing that we have cultivated in our previous lives. This time, we won by simply lying down. Another male student added, Isn't that so? The day before yesterday, I saw Brother Jun sparring with another veteran in the training room's arena. He defeated that veteran in just 3 moves. He's really amazing. Song Fongrong also chimed in. Her intention to flatter was as obvious as it could get. After being praised by everyone, Wang Xinjun was in a good mood. His lustful eyes stared at Ling Fei. These guys had already seen that Wang Xinjun was interested in Ling Fei when they were on the Flying Universe Battle Shuttle. They also saw that Ling Fei was not interested in Wang Xinjun. They all thought that this girl was a fool. If Wang Xinjun took a fancy to her, as long as she cooperated, she would not have to worry about not getting the direct test card. Putting that aside, the most important thing was that she could save her life. After dealing with a group of wraith wolves, the group did not go far before encountering a few more waves of dark ghosts. The deeper they went into the city, the higher the level of the dark ghosts they encountered. After killing 3 waves of dark ghosts, almost every student had made a move. Only Ling Fei and Li Daochong had not done anything yet. When the 2 green-faced fanged beasts appeared, Liu wanted to curry favor with Wang Xinjun. He said to Li Daochong, "Kid, are you here to watch the show? I'll leave these 2 green-faced fanged beasts to you." Him, Liu, I think it's better to forget about it. He's just going to die. I don't know what he's thinking. He's just a level 5 Qi practitioner. I can't believe he came to participate in the direct test, another boy said disdainfully. Chapter 210. Li Daochong didn't care about Lu Yu's shouts and the other boys' taunts. He only had one goal in mind, which was to level up the devouring ghost. The green-faced fanged green ghosts weren't even enough to fill the gaps between Li Daochong's teeth. They weren't even worth his attention. Along the way, it wasn't that Li Daochong didn't put in any effort, but that he was too lazy to. These low-level dark ghosts really didn't interest him at all. However, since Liu said so, Li Daochong didn't mind stretching his body. He just took a step forward. Ling Fei pulled him back. "Daochong, don't be impulsive. Let me go." Facing the green-faced fanged green ghost was no different from suicide. Ling Fei let go of Li Daochong's arm and rushed forward in a flash. Ling Fei stretched out her hand, and a long sword appeared in her hand. This was her magical weapon, a high-grade human step weapon, Crystal Fawn. Whoosh! Her beautiful figure danced, creating a sound that pierced through the air. A silver light flashed. In just one exchange, the green-faced ghost was cut in half by Ling Fei's sword. The spiritual energy contained in the sword Qi instantly corroded the green-faced ghost's body. The fanged green ghost saw this and didn't have the heart to devour the human soul. It turned and ran. It knew that it had encountered a human cultivator. Ever since it had followed the large group through the spatial rift, everything had been smooth sailing. Most of the humans it had met were just ordinary people and low-level cultivators. It ate all kinds of delicious meals, and it was very happy. This city full of food had become its dining table. However, it had gradually become difficult to find food in the past few days. When it saw the group of people appear, the fanged green ghost was incomparably happy. It didn't think much and rushed forward to devour the human soul. However, it didn't expect that its twin brother, the green-faced ghost, would be annihilated by a single sword strike. The fanged green ghost let out a strange cry and turned to run. Its cry was incomparably miserable. It sounded like a crow with a broken throat. How could Ling Fei let the fanged green ghost escape? With a tap of her foot, she shot forward like an arrow. Whoosh! She swung her sword, creating a sword chi. Pung! The sword light hit the fanged ghost's body, and a ball of spiritual fire rose. The fanged ghost let out a miserable howl and disappeared into the void. Ling Fei had killed the green-faced fanged beast in 2 moves. The other students were surprised. They didn't expect this tall and weak-looking girl to have such strength. Apart from Wang Xinjun and the other 2 veterans, among the 10 students, Ling Fei's strength could definitely be ranked second. Lu Yu's face twitched. Ling Fei's strength was on par with his own. She was even slightly stronger than him. Among the students, only Sun Wang, who is at the early stage of Qi gathering, is stronger than Ling Fei. Of course, Ling Fei's strength only surprised the students, but it was not enough to deter them. Many students might not be as strong as her, but who wouldn't prepare a few trump cards in their hands to participate in the direct examination. Lu Yu's original intention was to embarrass Li Daochong and let Ling Fei know who she should be close to. He just wanted to please Wang Xinjun and let him in the girl's heart. But Ling Fei's attack made Lu Yu's wishful thinking fail. When he saw Li Daochong's calm expression, he became even more displeased. I was wondering why someone at the 5th stage of Qi refining dared to participate in the direct examination. Turns out he's a freeloader, Lu Yu muttered angrily. After Ling Fei made her move, Wang Xinjun looked at her with even more fanaticism. He was determined to get his hands on Ling Fei. He began to think about how to find an opportunity to make his move. After this small interlude, the group continued to move deeper into the city. After walking past 2 streets, more and more dark ghosts appeared around them. Their levels also increased. Every time they walked a certain distance, they would encounter several wandering dark ghosts. The group moved slower and slower. Dark ghosts could suddenly attack them from all directions. Chen Naiwu and Wang Xinjun had no choice but to take action. Wang Xinjun smashed the skull of a 4th-stage rotten lizard with a punch. Lu Yu stood to the side in shock. If he were to face a 4th-stage ghost beast, it would definitely be a fierce battle. The outcome would be hard to predict. Even if he took out a 5th-stage talisman, he would only be able to win by a small margin. Brother Jun is amazing, another boy praised from the bottom of his heart. Nonsense. Do I need you to say that? The ghost beasts Brother Jun killed at the front lines are much stronger than this rotten lizard. There are no dark ghosts or ghost beasts in Puyun City that Brother Jun can't handle. Lu Yu looked at the boy as if he were ignorant. Wang Xinjun was quite pleased with Lu Yu's words and smiled as he said, "The dark ghosts and ghost beasts we've encountered so far are just cannon fodder on the front lines. After another street block, the truly powerful dark ghosts will appear. According to our intelligence, the most powerful dark ghosts on this path are the 2 great ghost kings. The journey ahead will be quite dangerous, so everyone should be careful." Just as Wang Xinjun finished speaking, a boy not far from him let out a heart-wrenching scream. "Ah, don't come over! Don't come over!" Everyone jumped in fright. They turned to look and saw the boy holding his head with his eyes bulging. He looked behind him and knelt on the ground as if he had seen something extremely terrifying. However, no one saw anything behind the boy. Goo. Blood kept flowing out of the boy's mouth as his head swelled. Pung! His head exploded as brain matter splattered everywhere. Thud! The headless corpse fell to the ground without a sound. Under everyone's gaze, a fresh life was lost just like that. No one knew what had happened. All they saw was a black spirit slowly rising from the headless corpse. Female black fiend, Chen Nai was said with a serious expression. A female black fiend was one of the stronger great ghost kings. A few students had never seen such a high-level dark ghost before and were trembling in fear. Li Daochong's eyes flashed. From a moment he entered the city, he had sensed a murderous aura. He had not paid attention at the time and did not expect it to be a female black fiend that was hiding its death aura. Wang Shengjuan's expression darkened as he cursed inwardly. Neither he nor Chen Naiwu had discovered this female black fiend lurking in the dark. Just as he was about to issue a warning, before he could open his mouth, a fierce gust of wind erupted as more than a dozen mother and child fiends rushed out from the surrounding buildings. "Damn it, let's attack together," Wang Xinjun shouted. As he spoke, he grabbed Ling Fei and said, "Little girl, come with me." Ling Fei's pretty face revealed a look of shock. She had been thinking of taking the opportunity to take Li Daochong away from the group. Who would have thought that Wang Xinjun would directly grab her? More than a dozen mother and child fiends let out ear-piercing screams as their shadows filled the sky. For a moment, the entire group was thrown into chaos. "Ah!" A girl let out a shrill cry as a black fiend pierced her body. As soon as the sound came out, her head exploded and she lost all signs of life. The sudden turn of events caused the faces of several students to turn pale. They were no longer as calm as before. Only then did they realize that the previous peace was just an illusion before darkness descended. For a moment, They thought that this direct test was not as scary as they had imagined. Brother June, there are so many mother and child fiends. What should we do? Lu Yu's face was as stiff as a corpse's. What else can we do with you useless brats? Retreat. Wang Xinjun pushed Lu Yu away and grabbed Ling Fei to flee the way they had come. Let go of me. Ling Fei wanted to break free from Wang Shengjuan's demonic claws, but she could not. The difference in strength between her and Wang Xinjun was too great. Seeing that Wang Xinjun did not dare to fight the mother and child fiends, the students followed Wang Xinjun and ran away. As Chen Naiwu retreated, he threw out a spirit energy bomb. With a loud bang, spirit energy spread out. The dozen or so mother and child fiends that were wreaking havoc were infected by the spirit energy. They screamed and scattered, not daring to come in contact with the spirit energy. Song Fangrong shot out 3 level 5 talismans at the same time. She did not care whether the talismans hit her face or not. A few minutes later, Wang Xinjun and the others fled into a building. Everyone was still in shock. Their faces were pale and bloodless, and the sound of rapid breathing rose and fell one after another. After a while, Song Fangrong came back to her senses. She panted and said, "Brother Jun, let's count the number of people. Line up." Wang Xinjun grabbed Ling Fei and did not let go as he said sternly. The original team of 10 people was now lined up with only 3 people. Lu Yu, Sun Wang, another boy, and Ling Fei were firmly held by Wang Xinjun. Ling Fei, who had been trying to break free from Wang Xinjun, saw the 3 people standing in front of her. Her heart sank. Where was Li Daochong? Alas! Ling Fei sighed with a lonely expression. When she came, she had vowed to protect this little fellow from the same hometown. Now, she could not even protect herself. Chapter 211. Just as Wang Shengjuan's group was fleeing the scene of the incident into a building a block away at the scene of the incident, 10 some mother-child fiends floated in the air, forming a circle around a clean-faced young man. This young man was naturally Li Daochong. Wang Shengjuan's group had fled in such a hurry that they had no time to observe their surroundings. No one noticed that Li Daochong was standing in place with no intention of running away, his face calm and collected. Escape? What a joke! Where could he find such a delicious meal? To him, the mother-child fiends were barely enough to be an appetizer. Back when Li Daochong was at the 10th layer of Qi refinement, he had easily killed 2 mother-child fiends. Now, not to mention a dozen, even if there were 100 of them, he would still eat them all. Aside from Li Daochong, who was still standing, there was also a man and a woman lying on the ground, trembling. Li Daochong had only been able to save 2 of them. The other 3 students had unfortunately met their end. There were now 3 headless corpses lying on the ground, as dead as they could be. Li Daochong was somewhat annoyed that he hadn't been able to save everyone. The mother-child fiends were very cunning. Not only had they concealed their death chi, they had even disguised it as the death chi of the underworld ghosts. In fact, Li Daochong had already sensed the death aura around him. However, his telekinesis was not concentrated in one place. Instead, it spread out to cover a radius of 2 kilometers. The large area spread out made his senses less sensitive. This also caused Li Daochong to misjudge the true attributes of the underworld ghosts lurking around him, allowing the mother-child fiends to succeed in their ambush. But Li Daochong also knew that he couldn't protect everyone. He could protect them for a while, but not forever. The entrance test had only just begun, and there was no telling what level of underworld ghosts they would encounter later. Wang Shengjuan's group was the weakest of the 30. This guy had been so focused on Ling Fei that he hadn't even considered the problem of team composition. The boy who collapsed next to Li Daochong was called Ding Tao, and the girl was called Chao Wenxuan. Both of them were at the peak of the aura refining stage. Logically speaking, the students who were able to participate in the direct test should have some guts. At the very least, they were forced to do so. In short, they shouldn't be so cowardly. However, when the chi of death released by the mother and son fiends were gathered together, It was already beyond what a chi refinement cultivator could withstand. Once one couldn't bear it, the fear brought about by the dark death chi would make one's legs go soft, and the last line of defense in one's heart would completely collapse. What should we do? What should he do? I don't want to die. Ding Tao wailed. Chao Wen-Xuan was so scared that her mind went blank. Her teeth were chattering. Girls are naturally timid. It was good enough that she hadn't fainted in such a situation. The two of them did not notice that the mother-child double fiends were all staring at Li Daochong, but none of them dared to take the initiative to attack. Li Daochong licked his lips and strode forward. Chao Wen-Xuan grabbed Li Daochong's leg. Don't go. Take me with you. As long as you take me with you, I'll promise you anything. Li Daochong frowned slightly and pushed Chao Wen-Xuan away. The latter wanted to continue hugging his leg, but Li Daochong's figure flashed and was already several meters away. I beg you, don't leave me behind. Chao Wen-Xuan shouted in despair. Whoosh! Li Daochong acted as if he didn't hear Chao Wen-Xuan's screams. Like a cheetah that had locked onto its target in the grass, Li Daochong jumped up. Li Daochong had already chosen his first target. It was the female black fiend that had been hiding in the body of the first boy whose head had exploded. The female black fiend had no time to react. The human had already appeared in front of it. Bang! A muffled sound. The fist with spirit energy smashed heavily on the ugly face of the female black fiend. The majestic spirit was like an invisible flame that instantly swallowed the female black fiend. With a snap, it disappeared into nothingness. D. Killed the female black fiend. Soul power gained. Li Daochong's sea of consciousness sounded as usual. The spirit in his body increased a little. Chao Wen-Xuan's frightened little face suddenly froze in despair. She looked at the scene with tears in her eyes and was completely stunned. Ding Tao was even better. He kept saying, "It's over. It's over. I'm hallucinating. I've been possessed by the female black fiend. I'm going to die. I'm going to die." One punch killed a female black fiend. What kind of strength was this? In the view of Ding Tao and Chao Wen-Xuan, there would be no more than 5 students participating in the direct test. The probability of one appearing in their group was 0. However, the next scene was unforgettable for the two. Li Daochong's figure swayed from side to side as if he was teleporting. Every time he appeared, he only punched. Every time he punched, a mother-child double fiend was bombarded and disappeared into nothingness. In an instant, the group of mother-child double fiends who were eyeing the three as prey turned around and fled. But could they escape? In less than 10 seconds, more than 10 mother-child double fiends disappeared as if they had never appeared in this world. Li Daochong finished off the last black fiend on top of a small building tens of meters away. He returned to the two of them with a look of dissatisfaction. Chao Wen-Xuan's pair of beautiful eyes were wide open, and the color in her eyes flowed with an unbelievable light. Ding Tao suddenly slapped himself. Only then did he confirm that it was not an illusion. Everything was real. He looked at Li Daochong with eyes full of awe. You should go back the way you came and leave the city. If you go any further, I won't be able to protect you. Li Daochong said, then turned around and walked in the direction that Wang Xinjun and the others had fled. Big brother, don't leave me behind. Ding Tao reacted quickly. He got up and chased after Li Daochong. Chao Wen-Xuan came to her senses and quickly got up to follow. Li Daochong's footsteps became faster and faster. Ding Tao and Chao Wen-Xuan chased after him with all their might. Out of the original group of 10 people, 6 had died. Wang Xinjun did not care at all. For this direct test, Wang Xinghu had already told him not to enter the central part of the city. He had to return to the flying feather ship before sunset. When night fell, the 100 Ghosts Parade would really appear in Puyun City. The veterans who had been assigned to lead the way for this direct test were all soldiers who had violated military rules. They accompanied this group of students on this extremely risky mission to make up for their mistakes. Wang Xinghu naturally would not let his brother die. As the examiner of this test, he still had some authority. In order to protect his brother, He had bribed everyone and spent tens of millions of Federation coins to buy his brother's life. Wang Xinjun finally found a good opportunity to make a move on Ling Fei. Naturally, he would not miss it. After lining up, he said, "Ling Fei, you and I will go scout the way." "I'm not going." Ling Fei coldly rejected. "You're not going? Ling Fei, you dare to disobey a military order? Let me tell you, during the direct test, you are a soldier on the battlefield. You must obey military orders. If you don't, you will be punished according to military law," Wang Xinjun said darkly. "Wang Xinjun, as the team leader, you ran away from the battlefield. Do you want to be punished according to military law?" Ling Fei was not afraid. She knew what Wang Xinjun wanted to do. Ran away from the battlefield? Who saw me run away from the battlefield? I minimized the casualties, and you still framed me, bitch. Wang Xinjun's eyes narrowed. A murderous intent flashed through his eyes. "Brother Jun, I think Ling Fei should be punished according to military law now." Lu Yu judged the situation and interrupted. "You're right, Ling Fei. You ignored your superior's orders. Now, I'm going to punish you according to military law. You'll be punished by whipping. Disobeying military orders and contradicting your superior is a double crime. You'll be punished with 20 black vine lashes. You're not allowed to wear clothes." Wang Xingjun's eyes were filled with greed. He originally only wanted to enjoy Ling Fei alone. Seeing that this girl did not understand the situation, he changed his mind. "You." Ling Fei was shocked. She did not think that Wang Xinjun would dare to ask her to take off her clothes in front of so many people. "You're not taking it off? Do you want me to help you take it off?" Wang Xinjun sneered. "You dare." Ling Fei nervously took a step back, a wisp of moisture in her eyes. She had already prepared herself for the worst by participating in the direct examination. At worst, she would die. However, there was no worst, only worse. This person was far more terrifying than the dark ghost. Could it be that even if she died, she would not have a good death? Ling Fei thought in despair. She looked pleadingly at the others, but none of them had any intention of helping her. Other than Song Fongrong, the others all looked expectant. "You'll see if I dare." "Naiwu, Lu Yu, grab her." Wang Xinjun savagely smiled. Chen Naiwu and Lu Yu began to walk toward Ling Fei. Ling Fei clenched her teeth and turned to run. Chen Naiwu was prepared. His figure flashed, blocking Ling Fei's path and grabbing her arm. Ling Fei's sword instantly appeared in her hand, and she used all her strength to slash at Chen Naiwu. However, how could she be a match for Chen Naiwu? Chen Naiwu's hand chopped at Ling Fei's wrist, and her sword fell to the ground. Chen Naiwu grabbed Ling Fei's wrist and firmly restrained her. Lu Yu seized the chance to grab Ling Fei's other arm. In the blink of an eye, Ling Fei had been firmly suppressed. The greedy look on Wang Xingjun's face became even more intense. He walked in front of Ling Fei, grabbed her chin, and forcefully twisted her beautiful face to face him. With a lewd smile on his face, he said, "Little girl, do you think I dare?" "Ha ha ha. You wouldn't dare," a calm voice said from outside the door. Chapter 212. Everyone looked to the side and saw a figure outside the glass door. There was a thick layer of dust on the glass door, making it impossible to see outside. Creak. The door was pushed open. A young man in old training clothes walked in. "Li Daochong." Ling Fei cried out. She felt that the voice was familiar, but she couldn't believe it. How did he escape from the encirclement of the mother and son duo? Ling Fei thought that Li Daochong had already been buried in the belly of a ghost. Wang Xinjun thought that it was another group passing by and was shocked. But when he saw that it was Li Daochong, his hanging heart immediately calmed down. Lu Yu laughed. "Li Daochong, you came the right time. Do you want to admire this little sister's body together? She violated military discipline and is about to be punished." Li Daochong looked at Lu Yu indifferently, as if he was looking at a dead pig. "If you let go now, I can let you die on your own." Lu Yu stared blankly for a moment before bursting into wild laughter. "Huh, Li Daochong, I'll give you 3 seconds. Kneel down and kowtow 3 times, then call me Grandpa, and I won't fuss over what you just said. Li Daochong, run. Don't worry about me. Ling Fei shouted. Can you run? You're already here, and you still want to run? In your dreams. I've long disliked this kid. Lu Yu said as he increased the strength of his hand, pressing Ling Fei down. Before Lu Yu finished speaking, Li Daochong suddenly appeared in front of him. No one saw how Li Daochong moved. In the blink of an eye, Li Daochong disappeared from the doorway and appeared in front of Lu Yu. Lu Yu's face turned ugly. Kid, you're bluffing. With a roar, he raised his fat hand and punched towards Li Daochong's face. Bang! Li Daochong lifted his leg and kicked out. In other people's eyes, Li Daochong had only raised his leg slightly. There wasn't much of an outburst, and then his leg kicked out. His speed wasn't fast either. It was no different from a warm-up exercise. However, when his kick landed on Lu Yu's abdomen, that round body that weighed at least 150 kilograms flew back like a cannonball. Everyone stuck their heads out and was dumbfounded. Lu Yu slammed into the wall. Why bounce back and hit the ground? He spat out a mouthful of blood and tried to stand up, but his body was in turmoil. He felt that his internal organs were shattered and he couldn't stand up at all. What kind of monstrous strength was this? Ling Fei, who had been struggling all this time, seemed to be frozen at this moment. She opened her mouth wide and looked at Li Daochong in shock. The dilapidated and dim hall was silent. Everyone's faces were filled with shock. A fifth-layer Qi practitioner had killed a peak Qi practitioner in an instant. How could this be? Chen Naiwu and Wang Xinjun looked at each other. They both knew from each other's eyes that they were waiting for an opportunity to strike. Breath concealment technique. Li Daochong, you've hidden it well. I was wondering why a fifth-layer Qi practitioner dared to participate in the direct test. So you have something to rely on. Hee hee. But do you think you're awesome just because of this? Wang Xinjun laughed sinisterly. He didn't take Li Daochong seriously at all. He and Chen Naiwu could also send trash like Lu Yu flying with a kick. It wasn't a big deal. Li Daochong turned a deaf ear to Wang Xinjun's words. He turned to look at Chen Naiwu, who was still holding down Ling Fei. You're still not letting go? Chen Naiwu was stunned. A cruel smile appeared on his face. Kid, do you think I'm like that fat pig? Looks like you don't know much about the cultivation army. I'll teach you a good lesson today. With that, Chen Naiwu's figure flashed and disappeared. Ling Fei felt the pressure on her shoulder disappear. At almost the same time, Wang Xinjun moved as well. As a member of the cultivation army, he had learned the art of killing. Once he did, he would take the life of his opponent, whether it was a human or an underworld ghost. On the front line, if one showed mercy, the next one to die would be them. In the underworld ghost's eye, all life was a resource for their survival. They had to take a human soul. As veterans, Wang Xinjun and Chen Naiwu's savagery had been trained in actual combat. Their cultivation levels might not necessarily be very high, but their combat strength was definitely at the top of their peers. Even though Li Daochong had crippled Lu Yu with a kick when Wang Xinjun and Chen Naiwu attacked at the same time, the surrounding people looked at Li Daochong as if he were a dead man. Ling Fei really wanted to help, but she couldn't even see Chen Naiwu's movement technique. So how could she help? Chen Naiwu and Wang Xinjun, who had disappeared, suddenly reappeared. The two of them attacked from both sides, punching at Li Daochong's vitals. Papa! Li Daochong casually stretched out his two palms, standing motionless as he caught the two fists as if he were catching two paper balls. What? Wang Xinjun was shocked. This kid had actually seen through his and Chen Naiwa's movements. Damn it, Chen Naiwa growled. A sharp dagger had appeared in his other hand at some point, and he slashed it through the air at Li Daochong's neck. Li Daochong's eyes focused. At such a close distance, and at the early stage of the Qi condensation, he was a veteran with rich combat experience. His killing techniques had been honed over and over again, and his attacks were extremely crafty and as fast as lightning. Be careful, Ling Fei cried out in alarm. The dagger swept past Li Daochong's neck. Chen Naiwu savagely smiled. Kid, you're still too inexperienced to fight with us. Go to the King of Hell and regret it. Wang Xinjun felt that something was wrong. The dagger had clearly slashed Li Daochong's neck, but why was there no blood splashing out? Ling Fei turned her face away. She did not want to look anymore. At this moment, her heart sank to the bottom of the lake. In that case, I can only let you go to the king of hell. A cold voice came from behind Qin Naiwu. Song Fongrong opened her mouth wide as she saw Li Daochong appear behind Qin Naiwu. What kind of speed is this? After image, Wang Xinjun cried out in disbelief. Qin Naiwu's body stiffened. He only saw Li Daochong's figure quickly blurring and disappearing. The place where his dagger had slashed was nothing but air. Qin Naiwu felt a hand crawling behind his neck. Qin Naiwu's whole body's aura was released. His hair stood on end. Frightened, he used all his strength to turn around and stab behind him. However, it was too late. Kacha! Li Daochong's hand slightly exerted force. Qin Naiwu's neck broke like a matchstick. Qin Naiwu's arm, which was waving halfway, suddenly drooped down. His eyes glazed over, and his whole body went soft and fell to the ground. Li Daochong, you dare to kill a soldier of the Federation's cultivator army? How dare you? Wang Xinjun roared in fear. You want to kill me? I was just defending myself. Do you think I would stretch my neck and let you kill me? What kind of logic is this? Li Daochong looked at Wang Xinjun indifferently. You wait for me. Wang Xinjun did not refute. He knew in his heart that he was no match for Li Daochong. After saying these words, he turned around and ran. Wang Xinjun's speed was extremely fast. All the aura in his body was concentrated under his feet. The speed of his escape was even faster than when he attacked Li Daochong just now. In the Qi-gathering realm, he had already mastered the flying spirit steps. With a sweep, Wang Xinjun had already broken through the glass door and rushed outside. You can't let him go, Ling Fei shouted. Li Daochong frowned. He did not expect Wang Xinjun to be so fast. He was almost on par with himself. Even if he could catch up, he would have to chase for more than a few kilometers. In the blink of an eye, Li Daochong shot out a psychic attack. Wang Xinjun, who had already appeared dozens of meters away, paused for a moment. Blood spurted out of his nostrils, and his head felt like it had been hit by something. It was extremely uncomfortable, but he knew that if he stopped, he would definitely die. He forced himself to continue moving forward and soon disappeared at the end of the street. Seeing Wang Xinjun disappear, Ling Fei sighed in her heart. In the blink of an eye, one of the two Qi-gathering realm veterans had died, and the other had fled. The remaining people no longer looked at Li Daochong with contempt in their eyes. Instead, they looked at him with fear. At this time, Lu Yu, who had not yet gotten up, was paralyzed like a piece of dead meat. His eyes were wide open as he looked at Li Daochong with fear. He was 10,000 times more terrified than when he saw the dark ghost. Chapter 213. Are you all right? Li Daochong helped Ling Fei up for the ground and asked. I'm all right. Ling Fei stared blankly at Li Daochong. Her pretty face flushed red. Thinking of the words she said to Li Daochong a few days ago, she wished she could find a hole to crawl into. His strength is ridiculously strong. Why would he need you to protect him? Ling Fei was like a little girl who had done something wrong, looking down at the ground, not daring to look at Li Daochong. It's good that you're all right. Are you coming with me or going by yourself? Li Daochong casually asked. I'll go with you. Ling Fei blurted out, almost rushing to speak, only to find that she had lost her composure. Her desire to hug his thigh was completely exposed. Her pretty face immediately flushed red. Then let's go. Li Daochong nodded. As if the others did not exist, he went straight out the door. Ling Fei hurriedly followed, for fear of losing sight of him. In fact, Li Daochong's pace was slow, as if he was taking a stroll. Lu Yu was still kneeling on the ground wailing, but no one paid any attention to him. Until Li Daochong walked far away, the dead fatty finally came back to his senses. He managed to keep his little life. Song Fongrong stared at Li Daochong's back. Her two hands were constantly stirring. Her lower lip was bitten to the point of being bloodless. She wanted to follow them, but she was struggling. Wang Xinjun and Qin Naiwu were both experts in the army. They attacked Li Daochong in a pincer attack, but one died and the other was injured before they could even touch a hair on his body. Just how terrifying was this young man's strength? Even a late-stage Qi gathering expert would not be this powerful. Could Li Daochong be at the peak of Qi gathering, or even a foundation establishment stage cultivator? Song Fangrong could not be sure, but what was certain was, based on the strength that Li Daochong had just displayed, in this direct assessment, he was at least in the top 5. There was no doubt about Li Daochong's strength. It was reasonable to say that Song Fangrong didn't need to think too much about it, but she was afraid because Wang Xinjun had escaped. Wang Xingjun's older brother, Wang Xinghu, was the examiner for the direct test this time. He was a basic sergeant in the cultivation army. Wang Xinghu's cultivation was not at the early stage of Qi gathering, but at the peak stage of Qi gathering. He was only one step away from the foundation establishment stage. In a year or two, with Wang Xinghu's talent, he would definitely become a foundation establishment cultivator. Of course, this was a story for later, so let's not talk about it for now. Where could Wang Xinjun go after escaping? It was obvious that he had gone to look for Wang Xinghu. Wang Xinghu knew that his younger brother had been beaten and even killed a soldier of the cultivation army. Even if this matter couldn't be exposed, and he didn't dare to report it to his superiors, he could still avenge his younger brother. Song Fangrong was struggling in her heart. In the end, she didn't follow. In her opinion, Li Daochong wouldn't live for long. Wang Xinghu would personally act. Even if he didn't kill Li Daochong, he wouldn't be able to pass the direct test. After all, Wang Xinghu was the examiner. Song Fangrong thought about it again and again, then left the building and walked out of the city. In addition to Song Fangrong, Sun Wang and the other male student looked at each other, showing an expression of good luck. The two of them went out of the building at the same time. As for Lu Yu, no one cared about him. Lu Yu, who was as fat as a ball, breathed a sigh of relief. He leaned against the wall and gasped for breath. At this time, he was the only one left in the dilapidated hall. Hey, fuck, Li Daochong. Even if I have to go bankrupt, I'll still kill you. Humph. Lu Yu spat out a mouthful of blood. His fat face showed a sinister expression. He supported himself against the wall and stood up with difficulty. Just as he stood up, Lu Yu shivered. So cold. Lu Yu rubbed his hands. The moment Lu Yu turned around, his chubby face collapsed. His eyes, which were only left with a single line, widened in an unconventional manner, almost bursting his upper and lower eyelids. A gray, almost solid humanoid figure stood behind him. There were 2 lines of blood on its face. A pair of empty eyes faintly emitted a dark red light, so fragrant and delicious. The grayish-white humanoid said faintly. A pungent smell of urine spread. Lu Yu was so scared that he wet himself. When he turned around, he recognized the figure standing less than 3 meters behind him. Tongue-pulling malicious ghost. This was the first target of the direct test. Killing it would give a direct card. Tracking it to its location would give a direct card. But even if Lu Yu cultivated for a few more years, he would still be no match for the tongue-pulling malicious ghost. How could he kill the dark ghost that even foundation establishment cultivators had to be careful? A few seconds later, a heart-wrenching scream came from the dilapidated building. It quickly stopped, and everything returned to normal. In the building's hall, a fat but stiff gray corpse was laid on the ground. Its mouth was open, and its tongue was forcibly pulled out all the way to its chest. Lu Yu was dead. Student Li, thank you for saving me. Ling Fei followed behind Li Daochong like a little follower. After walking for a distance, she thanked him gratefully. No need to thank me. We're all friends, Li Daochong said with a smile. We're friends, Ling Fei asked in disbelief. Li Daochong's strength was beyond her imagination. In Ling Fei's view, it was already beyond her reach. To be able to kill someone at the early stage of the Qi gathering in seconds at such a young age, what kind of monster was he? Ling Fei had never thought that she would have such a powerful friend. Whether it was her background, talent, or anything else, there was nothing praiseworthy about her. How could she have such a powerful friend? Isn't that right? You already recognized me as your little brother. Don't you remember what you said to me on Red Sun? Didn't you say that if I followed you and listened to my sister's commands, I would have a high chance of saving my life? Li Daochong teased. Is that so? Did I say that? Ha ha. Ling Fei laughed awkwardly. Her face was flushed red, and she wanted to bang her head against the wall. She wanted to show off in front of this little brother who looked clean, but in the end, she failed. You didn't say that, then didn't I save you in vain? Li Daochong said with a regretful face. No. We've said it before. Of course, we're friends. Ling Fei quickly said. That's good. Li Daochong's face showed a hearty smile. After a few words, Ling Fei's nervousness due to her awe dissipated a lot. Knowing that Li Daochong was so powerful, he still treated her as a friend. Her heart was filled with joy. Student Li, should we leave the city and find a place to hide until the test is over? Ling Fei suddenly asked. Hide? Why? Li Daochong turned his face and asked curiously. Because Wang Xinjun escaped. Ling Fei replied. So what? He won't live for long. He was hit by my telekinesis attack. Li Daochong was puzzled. Ling Fei was stunned for a moment. This guy was already so strong, but he could actually use telekinesis attacks. What kind of pervert was that? If he dies, his brother Wang Shenghu will definitely not let you go. In fact, you should have killed everyone just now, including Wang Xinjun. Ling Fei did not think that Li Daochong could fight against Wang Shenghu, even if he was already perversely strong. Kill you too? Li Daochong suddenly smiled and looked at Ling Fei differently. Ling Fei lost her composure and exclaimed, Student Li, you really know how to joke. You and I are on the same side. We're friends. After saying that, Ling Fei's heart became nervous for no reason. You know I'm joking. Why are you retreating? Li Daochong laughed. Aha, is that so? Ling Fei's forehead dripped with sweat as she hurriedly followed him again. Don't you want to get the pass card if you hide? Li Daochong stopped and looked at Ling Fei and asked, You had a conflict with Wang Xinjun because of me. I don't want you to lose your life because of me. That would be too unfair to you. It doesn't matter if you don't get the pass card. Where there's life, there's hope. Ling Fei simply said, Don't think too much. Since you're here to participate in the pass test, there's only one purpose. Get the pass card. Otherwise, why are you here? For fun. Li Daochong asked, but Ling Fei still felt that it was safer to hide. As long as the pass test was over, Wang Shenghu's power would not be so great. At that time, the military would come to pick them up. But just as she opened her mouth, she was interrupted by a loud noise. Boom! A figure crashed into the house in front of them like a cannonball, and the house collapsed. Li Daochong frowned. The figure that crashed into the house was Ding Tao. Under the impact, Ding Tao had already lost his breath. He couldn't be more dead. On the other side, Chao Wenxuan's hair was disheveled. Her eyes were pitch black, and her skin was dark purple. She looked terrifying. Chapter 214. Chao Wenxuan rushed over like a madman. Her hands were like dead branches, covered with a black scale-like substance. Ling Fei was so scared that she hurriedly took out her weapon. Li Daochong frowned slightly. These two guys had followed him all the way, but he did not expect that in just a few minutes they would be possessed by the dark ghost. With Chao Wenxuan's current state, Li Daochong could tell at a glance that she had been possessed by the wronged woman. Last time on the flying ghost shuttle, Li Daochong had a hard time dealing with the wronged woman. But now it was different from the past. After more than 2 months, Li Daochong had risen by 2 levels, and with his current strength of the late stage of qi gathering, the wronged woman was no longer a threat to him. However, this wronged woman seemed to be much stronger than the one on the flying ghost shuttle. Her speed was extremely fast. Chao Wenxuan, who had been possessed by the wronged woman, was like a ghost. Her body was floating in the air, and around her floated 3 head-sized stones burning with dark fire. Hoo! The 3 stones shot over like artillery shells. Even though Li Daochong's strength had greatly increased, he did not dare to use his bare hands to touch the dark fire. And in a flash, Tsang ink appeared in his hand. Shing! The blade light flashed. The two pieces of dark fire rocks were split in half and fell to the ground. Li Daochong did not expend any effort, but Ling Fei used all her strength to hack at the stone, and with a clang, she was sent flying. The dark fire invaded Ling Fei's body, making her feel as if her whole body was being pricked by needles, and the pain was incomparable. Ling Fei flew more than 10 meters and hit a wall to stop herself, but before she could stand firm, the dark fire stone came whistling over. Seeing that it was about to hit Ling Fei, a green shadow flashed. Li Daochong appeared out of nowhere, and with a slash of his blade, the dark fire stone was destroyed. Ling Fei looked at the figure standing in front of her in a daze, and an unprecedented sense of security spontaneously arose. Chao Wen-Xuan let out a scream like it came from hell, both her claws stretched out, clawing at Li Daochong's head. "Be careful," Ling Fei cried out in alarm. Such a terrifying ghost. Ling Fei had never seen or even heard of it before. Too terrifying. Ling Fei's tall and slender body could not help but tremble. Bang, bang. Sparks flew. Ling Fei couldn't see what was happening. When everything stopped, Chao Wen-Xuan's sharp claws didn't grab Li Daochong's head. Instead, Li Daochong grabbed Chao Wen-Xuan's head. What the hell? Ling Fei was dumbfounded. Chao Wen-Xuan's two claws danced about, desperately tearing at Li Daochong's arm. But that seemingly ordinary arm was like an iron arm and did not care about the two ghost claws at all. Crack! Ling Fei could clearly hear the sound of bones breaking. Ah! Chao Wen-Xuan let out a heart-wrenching scream of terror, which pierced through the sky above the city. A few seconds later, the dark purple color on Chao Wen-Xuan's body slowly faded, and her skin returned to its original white color, and the black scales on her hands also disappeared. As soon as Li Daochong came into contact with Chao Wen-Xuan, the blood-boiling upgrader immediately reacted violently, and a powerful suction force appeared, directly absorbing the wronged woman attached to Chao Wen-Xuan's body. Beep! Killed one wronged woman, soul power gained. A notification sounded. Li Daochong's spiritual energy had clearly increased. The level of the wronged woman was relatively high, so it could be completely converted. Li Daochong's lips curled. He had managed to eat a bit of this meal, and his late-stage qi condensation spiritual energy had become even more vigorous and solid. Chao Wen-Xuan's body went limp, as if she were dead. Ling Fei looked at Li Daochong's hand on Chao Wen-Xuan's head. That bone-cracking sound just now. Could it be that Li Daochong had crushed Chao Wen-Xuan's skull? Had he killed Dark Ghost and Chao Wen-Xuan at the same time? Ling Fei didn't know what method Li Daochong had used, but Chao Wen-Xuan, who had been like a mad ghost just a moment ago, instantly drooped as if she were dead. What technique was this? Ling Fei was shocked. Is she dead? Ling Fei asked in a daze. She's not dead. She just fainted. Just now, I shattered 2 of her ribs, but it doesn't matter. She'll recover after drinking a bottle of spirit liquid, Li Daochong said as he put down Chao Wen-Xuan and poured a bottle of spirit liquid in her mouth. Li Daochong then poured a vigorous stream of spiritual energy into Chao Wen-Xuan's body. Several minutes later, Chao Wen-Xuan slowly opened her eyes, her petite body trembling. Although she had been possessed, she could still sense everything that had happened. The wronged woman had not eaten Chao Wen-Xuan's soul. Perhaps she had not yet had the time. In any case, Chao Wen-Xuan had luckily managed to keep her life. Chao Wen-Xuan was dazed at first, but after a few seconds, she came back to her senses. Seeing Li Daochong, she hugged him. Li Daochong, take me with you. I'm begging you, take me with you. I'll do anything you want me to. Chao Wen-Xuan begged. Her intestines were green with regret. She had suffered injustice in her hometown, and in a fit of anger, she had participated in the direct test. Now that she was here, she realized that this bit of injustice was nothing. She had always heard of how frightening dark ghosts were, but she had never imagined that they would be this frightening. Chao Wen-Xuan had encountered dark ghosts before and had even killed a few green ghosts with ease. She had believed that she was strong enough to pass the direct test. Now, it seemed that she had been naive. In less than 2 hours after entering the city, Their entire team had been utterly defeated by dark ghosts. Chao Wenxuan's mental defenses had completely collapsed. She couldn't even muster the slightest desire to fight. As for that direct card, she had long since forgotten about it. After witnessing Li Daocheng's strength, Chao Wenxuan wanted to follow him no matter what. As long as she could be protected, she was willing to do anything. Li Daocheng pushed Chao Wenxuan aside and said indifferently, "It might not be safe to follow me." Chao Wenxuan said in alarm, "It's even less safe if I don't follow you." Li Daocheng's impassive face revealed a hint of awkwardness. Taking Ling Fei with him was already very inconvenient. Taking Chao Wenxuan with him would only increase his burden. Li Daocheng said coldly, "If you want to follow me, I won't stop you. But you have to be clear that I'm not your bodyguard." Chao Wenxuan nodded vigorously. I know." Li Daocheng glanced at the sky, then without another word, turned and walked into the depths of Puyun City. Ling Fei and Chao Wenxuan glanced at each other, then followed. The deeper they went, the denser the dark ghosts became, and the more powerful they became. Dark ghosts below the great ghost level were too embarrassed to come out. Along the way, Li Daocheng did not attack. He would use his psychic energy to sense the number and level of the dark ghosts around him. Estimating that the two women could deal with them, Li Daocheng stood to the side. Ling Fei and Chao Wenxuan did not want to become a burden. When they encountered dark ghosts that they could deal with, the two women would enthusiastically charge to the front. When they encountered powerful dark ghosts, Li Daocheng naturally would not let the two women throw their lives away. After encountering dark ghosts again and again, and seeing Li Daocheng insta-kill them, the shock in the two women's hearts grew stronger and stronger. One day later, the three of them were very close to the center of the city, but Li Daocheng could not sense the aura of the tongue-pulling evil ghost at all. Li Daocheng's group of three was not the only one at the center of the city, and the auras in the vicinity grew denser. Li Daocheng could sense the auras of at least 50 people within 2 kilometers. Whoosh! A red light soared into the sky. It was a signal flare. Someone had discovered the tongue-pulling evil ghost, but they could not deal with it, so they could only send out a location. Li Daocheng tapped his foot against a building and leaped to the roof. Looking around, the location of the signal was at least 5 kilometers away. No wonder he could not sense it with his psychic energy. After confirming the location, Li Daocheng leaped down from a building several dozen meters high, using the spirit void flying steps to the point of perfection. Ling Fei and Chao Wenxuan saw Li Daocheng's movement technique, and their beautiful eyes revealed envy. For any cultivator, learning the spirit void flying steps was a dream. Only by learning the spirit void flying steps could one freely use spirit chi. This was the prerequisite for being able to fly on a sword when they reached the foundation establishment stage in the future. "Let's go and take a look," Li Daocheng said as soon as he landed, and rushed in the direction of the signal flare. Ling Fei and Chao Wenxuan desperately tried to catch up, but they could only barely keep up. If Li Daocheng had not deliberately increased his speed, the two women would have been left in the dust. Li Daocheng felt that this was not a solution, so he stopped and waited for the two women to catch up. He took out the 2 treasures that Qian Changhai had given him, a Dharma robe and a pair of gale boots. "Ling Fei, wear this pair of boots and deliberately increase your speed. Wenxuan, wear this Dharma robe. As long as it is not an evil ghost, it will not be able to possess you," Li Daocheng quickly said. After he finished speaking, he threw the things to them. Then, he turned around and rushed away without any hesitation. Chapter 215. Wang Xinghu was furious. His younger brother, Wang Xinjun, had committed a crime in the military. He had spent a lot of money to bribe his younger brother so that he wouldn't be taken to court. However, Wang Xinghu had never imagined that the path he had painstakingly arranged for his younger brother would be the Yellow Springs Road. Wang Xinghu was nominally the examiner of this direct test. On the surface, he looked very impressive, but in reality, no one in the military was willing to take on this kind of mission. The death rate of the direct test was too high. Not only the students, but also the soldiers who led the way. Due to the fact that the missions assigned to them were all extremely dangerous, the military's frontline forces have been stretched thin for the past few years, and they simply couldn't transfer more people to the front line. Wang Xinghu was willing to come for military merits. If he could successfully complete the mission, he would be promoted at least 2 ranks. Wang Xinghu looked at his younger brother's corpse with a gloomy expression. A few hours ago, the soldiers patrolling around the Flying Feather found Wang Shengjuan's corpse. After the military doctor checked, they confirmed that Wang Xinjun had been dead for almost a day. Cause of death: psychic attack. Wang Xinghu's mission was to wait for the students entering Puyun City to send a signal after discovering the tongue-ripping malicious ghost. Then, he would drive the Flying Feather to kill it. After seeing his younger brother's corpse, how could Wang Shenghu sit still? After greeting the vice captain, he drove the military motorcycle into Puyun City with his younger brother's corpse. Along the way, Wang Shenghu bombarded indiscriminately. He used his spirit light spear and spirit chi bullets to vent the anger in his heart. Although he killed many dark ghosts, he also killed many students by mistake. Wang Xinghu didn't restrain himself at all. Instead, he became even more aggressive. Wang Xinghu didn't show any mercy to the students who witnessed it. Killing his own kind was no different from killing dark ghosts. Wang Xingjuan's cause of death was confirmed, but no one knew who killed him. Everyone who entered Puyun City was a suspect. Dark ghosts could be ruled out if they died from psychic attacks. The biggest suspects were the people in Wang Shengjuan's group. Wang Xinghu followed the path of Wang Shengjuan's group and found several corpses. However, it was obvious that these corpses had been killed by dark ghosts. They were all members of Wang Shengjuan's group. A total of 6 corpses were found. Including Wang Xinjun, there were 13 people in the group. 7 of them were dead, and the remaining 6 were missing. However, in a building, Wang Xinghu was secretly alarmed when he discovered Lu Yu's corpse. It was obvious that Lu Yu had been killed by the tongue-ripping ghost. There were obvious traces of a struggle in the lobby of the building. Wang Xinghu also found his brother's footprints here. As a scout, Wang Xinghu confirmed that his younger brother had escaped after being injured by someone from the traces on the ground. In other words, the place where the younger brother's body was found was not the first crime scene. The younger brother's injuries worsened during his escape, and he could not hold on any longer. Through deduction, Wang Xinghu basically determined that the person who killed his brother was one of the other 6 people in the group. Song Fongrong could be eliminated, but the remaining 5 members were all possible candidates. Wang Xinghu quickly pulled up the information of the remaining 5 people: Ling Fei, Li Daochong, Chao Wenxuan, Sun Wang, and Wang Jinbing. Wang Xinghu frantically searched the entire city for traces of the 5 people. After a few hours, he only found Wang Jinbing's corpse. Puyun City was huge. It was a super city with a population of 50 million. Trying to find a few people in such a large urban cluster was undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. Wang Xinghu chose to fire a signal flare somewhere in the city. Since he could not find anyone, he gathered everyone to look for him. A few minutes after the signal flare was fired, several students who were closest to him rushed over. These students came from Kangwu Planet and another third-class cultivation planet. The weakest of them was at the early stage of Qi gathering, and one of them was infinitely close to the peak stage of Qi gathering. Their cultivation was above Wang Xinghu's. However, Wang Xinghu did not care about this group of people at all. Even the strongest student would not be able to withstand 3 moves from him. Strong cultivation did not mean that one was strong. Ning Xiujia, the number 1 genius of Kangwu Planet's Godwind Academy. Because he offended the son of the vice president of Kangwu Planet's Ash Wolf Association, he was ostracized and hunted down. His parents also lost their jobs because of this. Little Ning's family was in a state of chaos and had no choice but to migrate to a third-class cultivation planet. Ning Xiujia had no choice but to take the direct test, otherwise he would have no chance at the joint examination of 100 schools. Ning Xiujia was at the peak of the late stage of qi gathering. He only needed an opportunity to break through to the peak stage of qi gathering. Not only was Ning Xiujia's cultivation profound, but his strength was also in the upper echelons. He was definitely a tough nut to crack in the academies, but even with his strength and talent, he was not good enough on a second-class cultivation planet. However, Ning Xiujia was very confident that he would get the direct card. He had killed who knew how many dark ghosts along the way. But a few hours ago, Ning Xiujia's good brother had sent him a 10-second spiritual light video just before he died. After watching it, Ning Xiujia's anger rose from the bottom of his feet and his heart bled. The captain of the flying feather ship, Wang Shenghu, had actually killed an innocent student. His good brother of more than 10 years had accompanied him to take the direct test. They had agreed to take part in the joint examination of 100 schools together, but he had been beaten to death just like that. His brother had not died at the hands of the dark ghosts, but at the hands of his own people. Ning Xiujia could not accept it. His brother's death made Ning Xiujia even more determined to get the direct card. Only by taking part in the joint examination of 100 schools would he have a chance to turn things around. Thus, when he saw the signal flare shooting up into the sky, Ning Xiujia immediately rushed over. Ning Xiujia was almost the first to arrive at the area where the signal had come from. However, when he arrived, he did not find any malicious ghosts, only Wang Shenghu and 2 other veterans. At the same time as Ning Xiujia, another student from planet Kangwu, Zhao Yaru, arrived. She was at the middle stage of the Qi gathering stage and was a collateral disciple of a middle-class family on planet Kangwu. She had resolutely participated in the direct test because she had been ostracized by her family. As one of only 3 students from planet Kangwu to take the direct test, Zhao Yaru had also received the video. The 3 of them had formed a deep friendship over the past few days and had agreed to get the direct card together. But now only she and Ning Xiujia were left. When the 2 of them saw Wang Shenghu, unconcealable hatred appeared in their eyes, but they did not dare act on the spot because of Wang Shenghu's tyrannical abuse of power. Before long, more and more people arrived. The students present did not understand what was going on. Wang Shenghu sat in a chair with his eyes closed. No matter who came, he looked like he was meditating and did not say anything. Zhao Yaru clenched her teeth and sent a telepathic message to Ning Xiujia. Big brother Ning, Wang Shenghu wouldn't want to gather all of us and kill us together, right? Ning Xiujia shook his head slightly and replied, "It shouldn't be. Wang Shenghu and the 2 veterans behind him may not be a match for our group of students. I estimate that there are at least dozens of students scattered all over the city. No matter how powerful the 3 of them are, they would not be able to fight against so many of us. I alone can hold Wang Shenghu back. Those 2 soldiers are only at the early stage of the Qi gathering. You alone can hold them back." Zhao Yura nodded, and then her beautiful eyes revealed a strange look as she said, "Then what is Wang Shenghu's purpose in misleading the public by shooting the signal flare and gathering us here?" Ning Xiujia's handsome face showed a cold expression as he coldly said, "No matter what his purpose is, when more people come, I will release the video and let all the students see it." Zhao Yura's heart tightened. "Big brother Ning, this is not good. I think it would be better to wait until after the direct test and directly hand it over to the military procuratorate." Ning Xiujia clenched his fist. His eyes were somewhat moist. He still could not believe that his good brother had died. "If we hand it over to the military, Wang Shenghu will not die. At most, he will be sent to the military court for trial. I want him to die." More and more students gathered. Soon there were more than 20 people present. Each of them had a strange look on their face. Wang Shenghu, who had been resting with his eyes closed, finally opened his eyes, stood up from the chair, and waved his big hand. The veteran behind him threw out a large plastic bag. The veteran opened the zipper, and Wang Shenghu's body was revealed. Wang Shenghu said in a deep voice, "My brother was killed by his team members. Who knows the whereabouts of these people? Whoever can provide valid information will be able to get a direct test card." With that, Wang Shenghu pressed a button on his wristwatch, and immediately projected the images of Ling Fei, Li Daochong, Chao Wenxuan, and Sun Wang's spiritual aura. Almost at the same time, Ning Shujia also pressed the button on his wristwatch, and a video of Wang Shenghu killing people appeared. Every student present had a look of horror on their faces. Captain Wang, your brother's death is regrettable, but you ruthlessly killed the students who participated in the direct test. What is the meaning of this? Ning Xiujia tried to control the anger in his heart and asked as calmly as possible. Seeing the video, Wang Shenghu's eyes instantly turned cold, and the aura on his body became different. Chapter 2:16. Snatch the direct card? Captain Wang, don't you think there's something wrong with your logic? You should be waiting for the signal on the flying feather ship, but you appeared in the city and were seen by 2 or 3 students who were on a mission. Then, they snatched the direct card from you? Is that necessary? Shouldn't they go to the flying feather ship? Who knew that you would enter the city? Ning Xiujia said calmly. Wang Xinghu's fearless face darkened. He sneered, "Kid, this is a battlefield, not a court. What are you trying to prove by saying so much nonsense?" The students who gathered around were all furious. No matter what reason Wang Xinghu had, he didn't care about human life at all. Captain Wang, don't you know that a life for a life? Ning Xiujia had been suppressing his emotions, but when the image of his good brother's tragic death appeared in his mind, he couldn't hold back his anger anymore. His voice was still calm, but his tone was extremely cold. "Ha ha!" Wang Xinghu looked up and laughed. Then, he lowered his head and scanned the crowd. Finally, he locked his eyes on Ning Xiujia and said in a deep voice, "Kid, my life is right here. Come and take it if you can." Ning Xiujia was furious, but he didn't lose his cool. After all, Wang Xinghu was a military officer. If he attacked him, he would be offending his superior. No matter what reason he had, he would be punished by military law. The surrounding students whispered. Many of them were repulsed by Wang Shenghu's domineering behavior and stood on Ning Xiujia's side. "Captain Wang, why did you kill those students?" "I don't know. If he really started a massacre, wouldn't we all be in trouble? The situation doesn't seem right. Let's retreat." A few students felt that something was wrong and were afraid. "Kid, why aren't you talking?" "Humph. If you don't have the ability, then don't talk nonsense. Seeing that your cultivation is not weak and that you are of great use in this mission, I won't bicker with you. However, you can't escape punishment. You offended your superiors and started rumors, which is a big taboo in the army. If I don't punish you, then everyone will talk nonsense like you. How can I be an officer? Let's exchange 2 moves. If you can block 3 of my moves, then this matter will be written off. If you don't dare to accept, then kneel down and kowtow to me to apologize. Then this matter will be over." Wang Xinghu could see that the students around him were doubtful. If he didn't show off his power, he was afraid that something might happen. Ning Xiujia was worried that he didn't have a legitimate reason to make a move. Wang Xinghu's words gave him the opportunity to make a move. "I'll take it," Ning Xiujia said without hesitation. When Wang Xinghu heard this, his gloomy face relaxed. "All right, come on then." While the 2 of them were talking, a green shadow flashed from the darkness and appeared behind the several students. It was Li Daochong who had been running all the way. These several students were all at the middle stage of Qi gathering. Sensing that someone was behind them, they all turned their heads to look. They saw a student wearing old training clothes appear behind them. Several people simultaneously probed his cultivation level. When they sensed that he was only at the 5th stage of Qi refining, they all showed disdain. But a petite and delicate-looking girl kindly reminded him, "Student, this is not a place where you can come. It's better if you stay away." Li Daochong indifferently looked at the girl, but didn't reply. His expression had a trace of doubt as he looked at Wang Shenghu, who was standing in the middle of the field. When Li Daochong saw the corpse next to Wang Xinghu, he immediately understood what was going on. Wang Xinghu's movements were much faster than Li Daochong's expectations. "Hello, may I ask if the signal flare was sent from here?" Li Daochong tentatively asked the petite and delicate girl. After the girl reminded Li Daochong, She no longer looked at him. When she heard the question, she once again turned around and frowned. I already told you not to stay here. Why didn't you listen? The signal flare was sent from here. Towards the girl's impatience, Li Daocheng didn't care. He replied, "Oh, where's the tongue-pulling malicious spirit? Has it been killed?" The impatience in the girl's eyes deepened, but she still replied patiently, "There's no such thing. Captain Wang's younger brother was killed, and he was the one who sent the signal. His purpose was to gather the nearby students and find the person who killed his brother." Li Daocheng's eyes slightly moved. He continued to ask, "Did you find it?" Just as the girl was about to speak, a tall young man, standing by the side, glanced at Li Daocheng in disdain. He turned to the girl and said, "Xiaoying, why are you saying so much to this fellow?" Xiaoying pursed her lips. "Brother Yang, do you think that Ning Xiujia will be able to withstand 3 blows from Captain Wang?" The tall young man, who was addressed as Brother Yang, was called Yang Jin. He was a student of the elite class of a certain high school on the Tier 3 cultivation planet Hanyuan. His cultivation was at Qi intermediate stage, and there were 7 students from Hanyuan participating in the direct examination. Over the past few days, Yang Jin had become the leader of the group of 7. From the moment he laid his eyes on Xiaoying, his heart had already been moved by this petite and sweet-looking girl. Yang Jin's life on Hanyuan had always been smooth sailing. Regardless of whether it was in terms of talent or background, the Yang clan was one of the top clans on Hanyuan. However, Yang Jin was lustful by nature. Ever since high school, countless girls had become his playthings. However, due to Yang Jin's outstanding strength and background, most of the girls were willing to do so. One was willing to be beaten, while the other was willing to be beaten, so there was nothing much to be said. However, if one were to walk by the river often, one's shoes would eventually get wet. One day, Yang Jin took a fancy to an innocent-looking girl during a dinner party. Yang Jin, who thought of himself as a suave man, felt that no girl would reject his invitation. However, that innocent-looking girl simply wasn't interested in him. After being rejected, Yang Jin furiously tried to put the girl under house arrest. Who could have thought that the girl had a powerful background? She was actually the youngest daughter of the chief of Planet Hanyan. Due to her low profile, not many people knew of her true identity. That night, Yang Jin was beaten up by a bunch of masked men and thrown into a dustbin. The next day, Yang Jin was expelled from the school. If not for the Yang clan's influence, Yang Jin would have been doomed for life. Many scions from wealthy clans on planet Hongyun learned of this matter, and they wanted to get rid of Yang Jin. In the end, Yang Jin could only tuck his tail between his legs and transfer to an unknown university. After concealing himself for a year, he chose to participate in the direct examination. Although Yang Jin was beaten up and restrained himself, he couldn't stop himself from eating **T. After holding it in for over a year, when he saw Xiaoying, his heart immediately surged and his greed burst forth uncontrollably. Xiaoying's family background was ordinary. Her father insisted on marrying her to a playboy with a prominent family background. In order to escape the marriage, she resolutely participated in the direct examination. Yang Jin drooled over Xiaoying. After interacting with her for a few days, Yang Jin discovered that Xiaoying was a simple-minded girl who worshipped powerful cultivators. Thus, Yang Jin always maintained a lofty and glorious image in front of Xiaoying. Yang Jin was the strongest among the batch of students from Planet Hanyan. Along the way, he spared no effort in displaying his strength. Xiaoying's impression of him also increased bit by bit. Yang Jin was narrow-minded and extremely jealous. Among the 7 people from Planet Hanyan, one of them took care of Xiaoying. Although Yang Jin appeared indifferent on the surface, he was actually extremely jealous in his heart. Half a day ago, he lured that person into the area occupied by the innocent girl and was killed by her. At this moment, Yang Jin saw that Xiaoying was talking to a brat who came out of nowhere and was extremely displeased. Yang Jin's words were not friendly, but Li Daocheng's face remained expressionless. He ignored the hostile gaze that Yang Jin shot at him. With Li Daocheng's current realm, he was completely oblivious to such childish words and actions. When Yang Jin heard Xiao Ying's question, in order to show that he had a unique view, he immediately put on a professional appearance and said, Ning Xiujie is the strongest among our batch of students. I've heard of him before. It's said that Ning Xiujie's strength can enter the top 20 on planet Kangwu. No matter how strong Captain Wang is, he's still a qi-gathering cultivator. If Ning Xiujie were to fight seriously, I'm afraid that Captain Wang might not be his match. When Xiao Ying heard Yang Jin's words, the way she looked at Ning Xiujie immediately changed. Her eyes were filled with admiration. Ning Xiujie won't be able to take 3 moves. As soon as Yang Jin finished speaking, Li Daocheng's voice rang out. Yang Jin frowned. Brat, you're only at the 5th level of qi refining. What do you know? Go play somewhere else. Xiao Ying looked at Li Daocheng with a strange expression and said, How do you know that Ning Xiujie won't be able to take 3 moves? What proof do you have? Li Daocheng's lips curled up slightly and said, There's no proof. If he can't take it, then he can't take it. Xiao Ying was originally curious, but when she heard this, the curiosity on her face disappeared. She said unhappily, If there's no proof, then it's nonsense. Little friend, you should leave. No matter how big a lion in a cage is, it's no match for a wild lion. Li Daocheng curled his lips and said, Chapter 217. As Yang Jin spoke, his hand flashed, and a fire talisman appeared in his hand. He was going to attack Li Daocheng. When Xiao Ying saw this, she hurriedly pulled Li Daocheng away and said, Student, your cultivation is low. This is really not a place for you to come. You should leave quickly. Li Daocheng was about to launch a telekinesis attack, but he was accidentally pulled away, so he didn't really attack. Yang Jin didn't know that he had just walked through the gates of hell. At this time, he was still staring at Li Daocheng with a bored face. Xiao Ying's kind action made Li Daocheng restrain his killing intent, and then he said lightly, I'm just watching. I'll leave right away. Xiao Ying nodded and said, Well, then you stand further away. Brother Yang doesn't seem to like you very much. If you don't want to be beaten, go somewhere else. Li Daocheng didn't answer, turned around, and walked to the other side. Xiao Ying saw Li Daocheng walk away tactfully, and then returned to her original position to look at the field. Yang Jin looked coldly at Li Daocheng, who walked to the other side, and thought that he would teach this kid a lesson later. He actually dared to tear down his stage in front of Xiao Ying. At this time, a student standing next to Yang Jin touched his chin and said, Xiao Ying, Brother Yang, that kid just now, don't you think he looks familiar? Yang Jin said unhappily, What? Do you know him? The student shook his head and said, How could I know such a person? Just now, Captain Wang released 4 images of spiritual aura. That kid looks like one of them. Yang Jin smiled disdainfully and said, Really? I didn't pay attention, but how could this kind of trash kill Wang Xinjun? You must have seen wrongly. With that, Yang Jin looked at Li Daocheng again. When he looked, his eyes suddenly froze. He saw 2 tall and beautiful girls standing behind the kid. The 2 women were Ling Fei and Chao Wenxuan. Yang Jin's eyes lit up when he saw the 2 girls. He had seen too much of Xiao Ying's petite and dainty figure, so he was a little tired of looking at them. When the 2 girl next door girls appeared, Yang Jin's temptation increased exponentially. That brat's luck was pretty good. In a different place, he had a beautiful woman to accompany him. Just as Yang Jin's heart was racing, a muffled bang rang out, giving him a fright. Turning his head, he saw Wang Shenghu's fist flying towards Ning Xiujie. Ning Xiujie raised her arms to block. A wave of qi spread out. This punch could topple mountains and overturn seas. Not only was it powerful, but it also carried a vigorous qi. If an underworld ghost were to be struck by this fist, it would be obliterated into nothingness. Ning Xiujie's arms went numb. The blood in her body churned, and she felt dizzy. Ning Xiujie was shocked. What kind of fist energy was this? How could it be so terrifying? She was about to break through to the peak of the qi gathering stage and was not far from the foundation establishment stage. but Wang Shenghu's fist gave her an unstoppable momentum. Wang Shenghu's square-shaped face revealed a sinister smile, and his other fist had already greeted him. Ning Xiujia did not have much time to react. She instinctively jumped back and kicked out. The best defense was offense. Ning Xiujia did not want to be beaten passively. Instead of defending, it was better to exchange injury for injury. Wang Xinghu had no intention of dodging. The second fist was not affected at all, and it did not seem to be very fast. The only change was that it took a step forward. Bang, bang. Two muffled sounds rang out. Ning Xiujia kicked Wang Shenghu's waist, and the latter punched Ning Xiujia in the chest. But Wang Shenghu's body did not move at all, while Ning Xiujia retreated more than 10 steps and staggered, almost falling. The strength of the two sides was immediately clear. Ning Xiujia looked at Wang Xinghu in horror. Their cultivation levels were clearly the same, but she was not his match at all. Not to mention 3 moves, she was already unable to withstand 2 punches. Was this the strength of a basic officer in the cultivation army? Ning Xiujia now had a new understanding of the cultivation army. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew past. Before Ning Xiujia could stand firm, Wang Xinghu followed her like a shadow. His body movement was as fast as lightning. The surrounding students exclaimed. Someone cried out, Captain Wang's spirit void flying steps is infinitely close to the chi-controlling realm. He is not far from controlling magic treasures. If one did not look carefully at Wang Shenghu's body movement, they would think that he was flying. Ning Xiujia suffered a punch. The spirit chi in her body was already unstable and could not gather. She could only watch Wang Shenghu glide over. Wang Shenghu raised his fist again. In a hurry, a long stick appeared in Ning Xiujia's hand. It was a magic treasure of the upper grade of the human rank, the ebony stick. Bang! Wang Xinghu punched the long stick. Crack! With a crisp sound, the ebony staff was actually cracked open by the attack. The huge impact made Ning Xiujia fly backward again. With a bang, she crashed heavily into a house more than 10 meters away. The house immediately collapsed. This time, Wang Shenghu did not chase after her. Instead, he stood in place with his hands behind his back and stared at the ruins of the house that Ning Xiujia crashed into. The ebony stick blocked most of the power of the punch. Ning Xiujia stood up from the ruins with a dusty face. Looking at the cracked ebony stick in her hand, her heart was dead. One punch could crack a weapon of the upper grade of the human rank. What kind of strange power was this? The surrounding students were frightened. Their previous anger had long been replaced by fear. A few students who were indignant and even wanted to fight secretly rejoiced that they did not act impulsively. Otherwise, they would not know what had happened if they were beaten to death. Even if all the people present attacked together, they might not be a match for Wang Shenghu and the 2 veterans. At this time, Xiaoying looked at Li Daochong with a puzzled expression. This young man had said that Ning Xiujia couldn't take 3 of Wang Shenghu's moves, but she didn't believe him. Now, with just 1 move, Ning Xiujia couldn't take it anymore. If Wang Shenghu hadn't stopped, Ning Xiujia would have already been defeated. How did he know that Ning Xiujia could not take 3 moves? Strange? Xiaoying's beautiful eyes revealed a strange color. Yang Jin was at the middle stage of the Qi gathering realm. This guy was only at the 5th level of the Qi gathering realm. How did he see it? Could it be that he carried some kind of magic weapon that could detect one's true strength? Xiaoying was puzzled. She was curious about this strange young man. Yang Jin pretended to be calm as he stood next to Xiaoying. In his heart, he was gnashing his teeth. He did not expect that kid to be able to guess correctly. Big brotherly, Wang Xinghu is too strong. We should take advantage of the fact that he is not paying attention to us and withdraw. Ling Fei said worriedly, You can't leave. When you came, he already discovered you. Li Daochong said lightly. Hearing this, Ling Fei's delicate body suddenly trembled, and she couldn't say a word. Chao Wenxuan's small hands, which were hanging by her side, couldn't help but tremble. When the 2 women came over and saw Wang Shenghu's body lying on the side, they immediately understood what had happened. Wang Xinghu made it clear that he wanted to take revenge for his brother. They were afraid that everyone related to him would suffer a calamity. Chao Wenxuan suddenly regretted following Li Daochong. She remembered what he said before. Following me may not be safe. Only now did she understand the meaning of those words. But it was already too late. Li Daochong's voice had just fallen when there were cries of alarm coming from all around. They saw a short sword flying from behind. Its speed was extremely fast. With a chi sound, it floated next to Wang Xinghu. Spiritual sense control. This was the second step of imperial sword flight. Wang Xinghu's control of spiritual energy was high. It was far beyond the expectations of the students. Although Wang Xinghu was only at the late stage of the chi gathering realm, he was no longer a cultivator. He was a cultivator. The short sword floating in the air had become the dagger of death in the eyes of the students. As long as Wang Xinghu wanted to, he could control the short sword with just a thought. In the blink of an eye, he could kill everyone present. After learning how to control treasures with spiritual sense, one's strength would enter another level. The terrifying thing about cultivators is that with just a thought, they could control magical weapons to kill people from a distance. The higher the cultivation, the farther the range of killing people. Yuanian cultivators can kill people from 100 miles away without leaving a trace. Chao Wenxuan's legs went soft. She could barely stand. Trembling, she leaned against Ling Fei. With a sobbing tone, she said, "Sister Ling Fei, will Captain Wang kill us?" Ling Fei sighed in her heart. She did not speak. She did not know how to answer. Li Daochong on the side slowly spat out a word. "He will." Chao Wenxuan only felt dizzy. Her vision became blurry. Ning Xiujia walked out of the ruins. The ebony stick in her hand seemed a bit redundant. Was this the difference between a cultivator and a practitioner? Unable to avenge her good brother, Ning Xiujia's heart was unwilling. Her eyes were bloodshot. "Kneel!" Wang Xinghu's voice was not loud, but it shook the hearts of all the students present. Some of the weaker cultivators were so frightened by this shout that they almost knelt down. Ning Xiujia's eyes widened. Wang Xinghu wanted to use her as an example to others. "I'll kneel to the heavens, to the earth, and to my parents. Why should I kneel to you? I'd rather die than be humiliated. I won't kneel." Ning Xiujia straightened her chest and replied resolutely. While speaking, several talismans appeared in Ning Xiujia's hand. They were all level 6 talismans. One of them was the powerful 5 Thunder Talisman. Wang Xinghu smiled sinisterly. The short sword floating beside him shot out with a swoosh. Ning Xiujia was shocked. The talismans in her hand were released at the same time. Boom! With a loud sound, the talismans collided with the flying sword in the air and exploded. Waves of air rolled and spread rapidly. Many students were sent flying by the aftershock. The level 6 talismans only delayed the flying sword for a moment. In the flames, the flying sword flew out and shot towards Ning Xiujia. "Don't!" Zhao Yaru cried out. She shot out like lightning. A long sword in her hand stabbed towards Wang Xinghu's back. Zong! The flying sword swept past Ning Xiujia's knee. With a thud, Ning Xiujia knelt on the ground. At the same time, Wang Xinghu turned around. With a karate chop, he easily knocked the long sword out of Zhao Yaru's hand. He grabbed her hair and pulled violently. Zhao Yaru also knelt on the ground. "Who else is dissatisfied? Stand out for me." Wang Xinghu tightly grabbed Zhao Yaru's hair and glanced around. None of the students dared to look at Wang Xinghu. They lowered their heads. Of course, except for Li Daochong. Their eyes met. Chapter 218. Li Daochong was not aware of Wang Xinghu's sharp gaze. His face was calm. Without a trace of emotion, he replied, "Yes." Wang Xinghu's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Looking at the two girls behind Li Daochong, he said, "You three, do you know how my brother died?" Ling Fei's small face was pale. Chao Wenxuan was already scared to the point that her brain was a paste. How could she still speak? Li Daocheng was just about to speak. Within the range of the psychic power, two strange death auras flashed and then disappeared. Li Daocheng frowned. He wanted to continue to lock onto the death aura, but he could not find it. Wang Shenghu saw that the three of them did not speak, and coldly said, "You don't want to speak? If you don't want to speak, then kneel down. When you want to speak, then stand up." Ling Fei's lower lip was almost bitten. Chao Wenxuan's heart had already collapsed and immediately wanted to kneel down. Just as Chao Wenxuan's knees were about to bend, Li Daocheng held her, turned his face, and said, "We are here to participate in the direct test, not to be judged. Stand still." Li Daocheng's voice carried a trace of psychic power directly into Chao Wenxuan's sea of consciousness. With a buzzing sound, Chao Wenxuan felt like she was knocked on the head and stood in place. Wang Shenghu's face showed a surprised look. This kid cultivation was not high, but he had a backbone. But was it useful to have a backbone? If the three of them refused to speak, Wang Shenghu had 1,000 ways to open their mouths. "Kid, you have guts. Do you want to take 3 of my moves? If you can take it, even if you kill my brother, I will not take revenge on you." Wang Shenghu looked at Li Daocheng as if he was looking at an ant. Wang Shenghu killed a student, and in front of everyone, forcibly injured 2 students and forced them to kneel. In fact, had aroused the public anger of all the students present. But the students were forced by Wang Shenghu's despotic power and did not dare to speak out. In fact, they hoped that someone strong could stand up and destroy Wang Shenghu's prestige. But the appearance of Li Daocheng not only did not make the students feel encouraged, it made them even more depressed. So many Qi gathering students did not speak. What do you think you're a Qi gathering stage, kid? Come out to make a fool of yourself and let Wang Shenghu abuse you? Xiaoying looked at Li Daocheng as if she was looking at an idiot. This kid really did not know how high the immensity of heaven and earth. Did he not know his own weight? Yang Jin looked at Li Daocheng sympathetically. He had planned to teach this kid a lesson, but now it seemed that there was no need for that. Even if he was not of the world, he would not killed him. He would have to spend the rest of his life in bed for the rest of his life. Ling Fei, who was standing behind Li Daocheng, tugged at him and sent a voice transmission. "Big brother Li, a little impatience will spoil great plans. If he wants us to kneel, then kneel." Could it be that Wang Shenghu really dares to kill us in front of everyone? Li Daocheng acted as if he did not hear Ling Fei's words, walked towards Wang Shenghu, and said lightly, "Your brother was killed by me." As soon as these words came out, the surrounding students went into an uproar. But no one believed what Li Daocheng said. He can kill Wang Shenghu? Then wouldn't I be able to kill a foundation establishment cultivator in seconds? Is there something wrong with this kid's brain? You don't have to risk your life to be in the limelight. The students looked at Li Daocheng sympathetically. Everyone thought that he must have suffered some kind of shock. "Ha! My brother was killed by you? Kid, you think too highly of yourself with just you. My brother can pinch you to death with one finger." Wang Shenghu said disdainfully. Li Daocheng showed a strange expression. These days no one really believed the truth. Xiaoying was only a few meters away from Li Daocheng at this time. From time to time, she gave him a look, telling him not to show off, and even said, "Student, quickly back off. You will die. Believe it or not, didn't you say that you will take 3 moves? Why are you still not attacking?" Li Daocheng said impatiently. As for Xiaoying's voice, he just pretended not to hear it. Ning Xiujia, who was kneeling on the ground in the distance, looked at Li Daocheng in shock. This kid is courting death? Ling Fei was so anxious that she did not know what to do. Although she knew that Li Daocheng was not weak, even a genius like Ning Xiujia could not withstand a punch from Wang Shenghu. How could Li Daocheng be stronger than Ning Xiujia? Ling Fei did not believe it. "Since you are courting death, this father will help you," Wang Shenghu coldly said, and with a flick of his hand, he threw Zhao Yaru away. Zhao Yaru's body flew upside down like a kite with a broken string. Ning Xiujia, regardless of the ligaments in her knees, slapped her hands on the ground and soared into the air, catching Zhao Yaru, who was flying upside down. The two people collided with each other, fell to the ground and rolled a few times before stopping. Wang Shenghu had used his true force to throw her. If not for Ning Xiujia's help, Zhao Yaru would have suffered internal injuries. Thank you, big brother Ning. Zhao Yaru was still shocked and turned around to help Ning Xiujia up. Ning Xiujia smiled bitterly. What are you thanking me for? I can only do this much. I did not expect Wang Shenghu to be so powerful. I naively thought that I could fight with him to avenge my good brother. I thought too highly of myself, a frog at the bottom of a well. After all, the Cultivation Academy is just a hotbed. No matter how powerful it is compared to the front line of the Cultivation Army, the difference is not just a little bit. If I do not die this time, in the future I will definitely join the army to gain experience. Big brother Ning, do we have to find a way to save that brainless brat? Zhao Yaru felt that she was able to escape from Wang Shenghu's hands thanks to that stupid brat. Otherwise, she did not know how Wang Shenghu would humiliate her. So seeing that Li Daochong might be beaten to death, her heart could not bear it. Who can save him? Ning Xiujia sighed. Her voice was full of helplessness and humiliation. Wang Shenghu was just too strong. At the same time, in the field, Wang Shenghu turned into a shadow and disappeared from his original place. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Li Daochong. The side of the field exclaimed. Many girls turned their faces away, not daring to look. You are a bit stronger than your brother. Li Daochong suddenly opened his mouth. Wang Shenghu thought that Li Daochong was simply unable to see his movements, but Li Daochong's faint voice sounded in his ears. Wang Shenghu's pupils suddenly shrank. He felt that something was wrong, and punched out with even more strength. Pa! Li Daochong stretched out his palm and waved it like a fan. With a crisp sound, Wang Shenghu's quick and violent punch was easily deflected. What? The surrounding students stared at this scene in disbelief. Were their eyes playing tricks on them? Or did Wang Shenghu not use any strength in his punch? Everyone could not tell. Wang Shenghu did not believe it, and once again punched out. Pa! Li Daochong used the same trick again, stretched out his palm and gently patted it, and Wang Shenghu's punch was deflected. How is this possible? Wang Shenghu's nose flowed out hot liquid. His eyes were wide open like a dead fish's eyes. Damn it, Wang Shenghu's eyes flashed, and his fist shot out like a meteor. Pa, 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 pa. A burst of crisp sounds resounded in the field. Wang Shenghu threw out more than 20 punches in a row, but even Li Daochong's hair was not touched, and all of them were deflected. 3 moves have passed, Li Daochong lightly said. My brother was really killed by you. If Wang Shenghu could not see Li Daochong's strength, then he would not be Wang Shenghu, but Wang Shahu. I told you, but you didn't believe me. Li Daochong shrugged. Li Daochong, you would dare to kill my brother. I want you dead. Wang Shenghu roared, and the aura on his body surged. Didn't you say that if I took 3 moves from you, even if your brother was killed by me, you would not take revenge? 3 moves have passed. Li Daochong indifferently looked at Wang Shenghu and said, as if he did not see Wang Shenghu go berserk, I want you dead. Is that revenge? You disobeyed your superiors, disregarded military discipline, and killed innocent people. I, as the commander of this mission, will execute you on the spot. Finished speaking, a cyclone rose around Wang Shenghu, and he roared, sky-piercing sword. The suspended short sword shot towards Li Daochong like lightning. Danger, dodge! Ling Fei screamed. Li Daochong did not move. He stretched out his hand, and a long saber appeared in his hand. He had not used Song ink since it was refined. 9-split saber technique, first stage, sky-shattering slash. Li Daochong knew the power of the flying sword, so he did not dare to be careless. He immediately used the 4th stage of the 9-split saber technique. Dang boom! A crisp sound. Then there was a loud noise like an explosion, and the airwaves rolled, whistling in all directions. The surrounding students were shaken and flew backwards. Only a few people could barely resist the explosion of the airwaves. Wang Shenghu flew backwards like a cannonball. Puff, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His internal organs were flipped up and down, as if someone was stirring them with a stick. The air waves rolled, filling the sky with dust. A gust of wind blew, and the dust dispersed. All the students looked at Li Daocheng in shock, who did not move at all. They were all stunned. What kind of technique was this? It could even block a flying sword. Wang Shenghu struggled to stand up more than 10 meters away. Blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth, and his eyes gradually dimmed. He held his breath and asked, "What rank is this technique?" His voice was not as strong as before and was very weak. 9 split saber technique. I'm not sure what rank it is. You can think of it as a mid-grade earth rank technique. Li Daocheng put away the Tsung ink in his hand and replied casually, "Mid-grade earth rank. What is your cultivation level?" You can cultivate a mid-grade earth rank technique to such a level at such a young age. Good, good, good. Wang Shenghu's voice became smaller and smaller. He finally said good 3 times and fell to the ground. His mouth was still moving, but there was a smile on his square face. My brother and I died in the hands of a genius like you. It's not unjust. The Federation has a successor. Bang, bang, bang. More than 10 parts of Wang Shenghu's body exploded from the inside out, and he died. There was dead silence all around. Xiao Ying's mouth was wide open, and she could not believe it. Ling Fei covered her mouth and looked at Li Daocheng in surprise. She still underestimated him. Ning Xiujie and Zhao Yaru were shocked. At this time, they realized that they were just frogs at the bottom of a well. Yang Jin shuddered and wished he could slap himself twice. How could he have wanted to teach this brat a lesson? Wasn't he just courting death? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.